It had been a while since they'd seen him. When Mr. Chen arrived, the single slaughterhouse found harmony. When Mr. Chen arrived, the shipping fandom rejoiced. Most of the people at the dinner table had met the man before. The crews from room 205 and 520, in particular, were well acquainted with Comrade Chen. The moment they saw him, they greeted him enthusiastically. Mr. Chen, come on in, we just started. Eat with us. Yvonne Moreau, seeing him for the first time, frowned slightly. He looked familiar. I think he's the owner of a motel by the east gate of campus. I think I've also seen him over at the Gilded Phoenix Flower Shop. Isabella Zhao, who rarely came to the old campus, also eyed Mr. Chen with suspicion before it dawned on her. Gilded Phoenix Flower Shop. I think I've seen him at the Gilded Phoenix smoothie shop over by the new campus. Oh wait, isn't the smoothie shop below our office also called Gilded Phoenix? Even Clark Sterling couldn't help but give Mr. Chen a second look, his expression a mix of surprise and uncertainty. I feel like I've seen you over by East Bay Polytechnic. We have several Gilded Phoenix chain stores over there, too. Isabella's mouth formed an adorable O of shock. She stared at Mr. Chen, her eyes wide. Are you a ninja? This guy knows the shadow, clone, jutsu. Marco Shaw waved a hand magnanimously, grandly introducing him to the newcomers. That's nothing. This is a top-tier Renaissance man, a guy with maxed-out stats, a man of pure gold. Molly Tang excitedly added, if this were a novel, Mr. Chen would be one of those ultimate, all-powerful NPCs. Faced with everyone's awe and praise, Comrade Chen just gave a casual wave of his hand. You're exaggerating. I just have a little bit of money, and I open a few small shops to pass the time when I'm bored, that's all. As he spoke, he walked up to the dinner table and looked around. Let's see, where should I sit? At the table, Mr. Chen's gaze first swept over the master and mistress of the single slaughterhouse. One look. He nodded in satisfaction. Still a perfect match. Skip. Then his eyes landed on Wyatt Way and Anna, who were sitting at the end of the table. He raised an eyebrow, surprised. Whoa. Wyatt and Anna were already feeling guilty and a little awkward sitting next to each other. When they saw Mr. Chen's gaze fall upon them, Wyatt immediately made a show of standing up. Mr. Chen, why don't you take my seat? Anna also nodded generously, waving warmly at him. Come, Mr. Chen, sit next to me. It's been so long. Without a second thought, Mr. Chen waved a dismissive hand. No need. You two stay put. I'll sit somewhere else. After the master and mistress of the house, it was rare to find a second couple that looked so good together. How could he possibly break them up? His eyes scanned the rest of the table. His gaze paused on Isabella Zhao and Yvonne Moreau. Mr. Chen's expression turned curious. Huh, strange. Why do these two also look compatible? Not sure. Let's take another look. After a closer inspection, he understood. It wasn't that they were compatible, but that they had similar auras. They both radiated a vibe of not being particularly bright. Finally, he turned his head, and his gaze fell on the row to the left side of the table. Sitting there in order were Clark Sterling, Lily Liu, Quinn Liu, and Marco Shaw. The four of them were sitting somewhat spread out. The two Miss Lius, being from the same department, sat closer to each other, a little farther from the men on either side of them. Mr. Chen's eyes lit up. Oh, he got it. He immediately made his decision. You two beauties scoot over and make some room for me. I want to enjoy the feeling of being surrounded by gorgeous women, too. Beaming, he walked over and, with the ease of an old friend, plopped himself down right between Quinn Liu and Lily Liu. That one move naturally and reasonably squeezed Lily Liu and Quinn Liu to the sides. The former subconsciously leaned closer to Clark Sterling. The latter found half her body pressed against Marco Shaw's shoulder. Marco froze for a second, then instinctively tried to shift away. Quinn, are you cramped? I can move over a bit. Quinn rolled her eyes and unceremoniously grabbed him, pulling him back. Forget it. Any further, and you'll fall on the floor. Just sit. Clark was also slightly embarrassed and tense, about to ask if Lily was okay. But he heard Lily whisper, it's fine, as long as you're not cramped. Clark quickly shook his head. I'm not. Sitting at the head of the table on the other side, Leo watched the maneuver with curiosity and helpfully suggested, if it's too tight, you can come sit next to Claire and me. Hiss. Before he could finish, a delicate foot under the table stomped unceremoniously on his. He sucked in a sharp breath and shut up. Claire Sterling gracefully retracted her foot back in her slipper, her expression at the table showing no sign of what had just happened. But when she turned to look at Mr. Chen, the admiration in her eyes was overflowing. As expected of the talent she valued most. He never disappointed. There were originally 14 people at the dinner. Now, with the sudden addition of Mr. Chien, the atmosphere at the table inexplicably became much more orderly, radiating a certain law of nature known as compatibility. Everyone vaguely sensed it, but couldn't quite put their finger on it. They didn't dwell on it. They continued eating and chatting, and the topic soon shifted to their planned fall trip to Clear Creek Historic Town the next day. At the mention of this, everyone perked up, full of excitement. The girls from room 205 had even done their research in advance. Jade Jiang, the star student, pulled out a notebook filled with meticulously organized lists of all the must-see spots and activities in Clear Creek, from hands-on craft workshops to visiting the homes of famous figures and art galleries. There were also plans for night boating and taking photos in traditional robes, not to mention all the local snacks and delicacies. Mr. Chien listened, a look of realization on his face. "Oh, you going to Clear Creek Historic Town? That's a nice place. My fourth brother is over there." His words immediately drew everyone's attention. Fourth brother? Mr. For Gold. Holy crap. The Gilded Phoenix Group really is everywhere. They even have operations in Clear Creek, but then they heard Mr. Chien correct them. "You have to call him Master Sijin now. There's a temple in Clear Creek. My fourth brother became a monk there." Everyone? ? Marco Shaw gasped. "The Gilded Phoenix Temple. Holy crap. The Gilded Phoenix Group has expanded into the religious sector?" Mr. Chien waved his hands frantically. No, you can't say that. It's a century-old temple. The masters there are all deeply versed in Buddhist teachings. I hear their fortune-telling and prayers are quite effective. When you get there, you can say you know me and have my fourth brother give you a backdoor pass. You might even get to meet the abbot." He directed this last piece of advice at Leo and Claire. Leo didn't really care one way or the other. He had a carefree personality. He didn't actively seek it out, but he'd enter a temple if he passed one, and bow to a Buddha if he saw one, just for peace of mind. Claire, however, raised an eyebrow and accepted with a smile. "All right, we'll go check it out if we have time. A temple is fine, as long as it wasn't some kind of Taoist sanctuary." Today was a lively dinner at the LNS house. Tomorrow, they would gather and set off for their fall trip to Clear Creek Historic Town. The schedule was tight and reasonable. After finalizing the various activities and arrangements for the trip, everyone was filled with anticipation. But there was a slight imperfection. A few of the friends at today's dinner couldn't join them on the trip. "I have to go home for the break," Yvonne Moreau said with a hint of regret, though she quickly cheered up. "The renovations in the old district are about to start, so I need to help Grandpa Lou and the others pack up. Plus, I have some work to do for the company. The holiday is a good time to take care of it all." Isabella Zhao also had her reasons for not going. "I've got some family stuff to deal with. Oh, right, and I need to work on my manuscript." At the mention of her manuscript, clueless Zhao's spirits lifted. Slacking off before was one thing, but things were different now. She was the only person in the entire company who knew the boss and the boss's wife's secret. The number one employee, most valued by the boss. She couldn't betray her boss's favor and trust. Just now, the Crown Prince himself had given her a thorough lesson. Not only did she have the boss's trust, but she had also latched onto the Crown Prince's thigh. Her future was limitless. The Emperor's most favored courtier, perhaps even a key player in a new dynasty. The future was bright. So bright. Finally, there were Anna and Wyatt Way. Annie Cakes had wanted to go on the trip with her brother, sister-in-law, and the others. "Unfortunately, I have way too much work on my internship," Anna said, her face a mask of bitter resentment. "That jerk of a boss. He made me revise a project proposal 13 times. I have to work overtime during the break to revise it again. Ugh, I'm so mad. If I ever see that guy, I'm going to beat him up." Wyatt Way sneezed. He rubbed his nose, a little confused, then smoothly joined the conversation. "I have some things to do during the break, too. I need to oversee the tech development at Mako Entertainment and try to get the first version launched as soon as possible. And then there's some family business I need to keep an eye on. The people under me aren't doing a good job. It's a headache. If only I had an employee like you, Annie, things would definitely be different." That last line was delivered like a casual, suave compliment. Anna accepted it gracefully and replied, just as breezily, "Oh, please. If my idiot boss was half as good as you, Wyatt, my life wouldn't be so miserable, huh?" The two of them launched in a round of mutual flattery. You're too kind, Annie." "Not at all. Wyatt, you're too modest. Your boss must be blind, not cherishing an amazing employee like you. If it were me, I'd help you beat him up." Deal. We'll beat him up together sometime." The atmosphere was warm and friendly. But watching this scene, Leo felt a slight sense of unease. There was a strange sense of déjà vu, as if he had personally experienced this exact scene before. Beside him, Mr. Chien's gaze shifted back and forth between Anna and Wyatt. He seemed to have thought of something and thoughtfully stroked his chin. So, during the break after dinner, Comrade Chien found an opportunity to sidle up to Annie Cakes and casually ask her a question. He easily got the name of the company where she was interning. Then, when no one was looking, he zipped over to the eldest grandson of the Wei family's third generation. As if on a whim, he asked another casual question. He got the name of the family company that the young master was so busy worrying about. Arya. The same answer, twice in a row. After answering, Wyatt looked at Mr. Chien curiously. Mr. Chien, why do you ask? Is something wrong? Comrade Chien wore an expression of complete nonchalance. Nothing. Just asking. As he turned away, Mr. Chien could barely contain his grin. Nothing wrong. This is so right. Everything is right. In the afternoon, everyone hung out in the living room of the LNS house, chatting and even watching a movie on a DVD Mr. Chien had left behind. A legitimate DVD, a legitimate movie. Of course, there were also the likes of Marco, Shaw, Dylan, who sneakily approached Mr. Chien when no one was looking to ask for a few less than legitimate 7-star or even 8-star collector's edition DVDs, saying they'd take them back to the dorm to study and appreciate. Time passed without notice, and soon it was evening. The group ate dinner together in a cheerful atmosphere. Since the main group had to get up early tomorrow to head to Clear Creek Historic Town, today's gathering ended early. The 2 dorm crews had to go back to campus to pack their bags. The others had to head back to their respective homes in the city. In the front yard of the LNS house, everyone said their goodbyes. Lily Liu and Clark Sterling were taking the same car. Originally, the clueless duo of Gibberish Girl and Clueless Zhao were going to tag along, but Mr. Chien grabbed them. I happen to be heading into the city. You two can come with me. That left Anna and Wyatt, who were also preparing to leave. Before Wyatt had a chance to call a cab, Yvonne Moreau quietly approached him and said with a serious and solemn tone, Senior, I understand your feelings, but I think we should focus on our work and not be distracted by personal matters. Then she turned and walked away, leaving Wyatt utterly bewildered. Next, Mr. Chien floated over from his side and clapped him warmly on the shoulder. It's fine. It's good you can't go on the trip. You can focus on your family's business during the holiday. After a thought, he added a kind reminder. And don't go around thinking about helping people beat up their bosses. This string of comments left the eldest grandson of the Wei family's third generation even more confused. Then Mr. Chien also drifted away, his good deed done in secret. Wyatt couldn't help but shake his head. Just as he was about to turn and leave, he looked up and saw Anna walking over after saying goodbye to her brother and sister-in-law. Their eyes met. There was a slight pause. Wyatt habitually put on a smile. Hey, Annie. Leaving? Anna also wore a natural, smiling expression. Yeah, can't make the trip, so I'll see you around, I guess. It was a harmonious and natural exchange of pleasantries. It seemed as if nothing was out of the ordinary. After a few sentences, they suddenly found themselves at a loss for what to say next, and the conversation stalled. They subconsciously turned their heads and looked toward the courtyard gate. At that moment, Leo and Claire were standing by the gate, smiling and waving goodbye to their roommates. The master and mistress of a single slaughterhouse. One was tall, handsome, and effortlessly cool. The other was stunningly beautiful and utterly captivating. They stood side by side, perfectly natural and intimate. The master had his arm around the mistress's waist. The mistress turned slightly, looking up at his face with a faint, sweet smile. A perfect match. Watching this scene from a distance, Wyatt and Anna couldn't help but be slightly mesmerized. Their hearts were inexplicably touched. When you hold high the banner of freedom for the unloved, you can't stop your eyes from glancing at those who are loved. It was envy. It was a longing for something beautiful yet unattainable. Their thoughts returned to the present. When Wyatt and Anna looked at each other again, they had both concealed their feelings, showing no trace of anything unusual. They just shared a seemingly carefree smile. Leaving? Yes, see you. Daily request for chapter boosts and gifts. October 1 SD. The second day of a long fall break. In the early morning, the LNS house was a scene of bustling activity. Downstairs, the mistress of a single slaughterhouse was organizing luggage on the living room sofa. Beside her, the household's guardian beast, Reasonable the parrot, flapped his wings, diligently helping his queen mom fold clothes. As she packed, Claire Sterling shouted upstairs, Are you ready? It's time to go. A reply came from the master of the house. Coming. In the next moment, Leo, was already rushing down the stairs, carrying several bags and suitcases. He brought them over to the sofa, opened them up, and began a final check with his girlfriend. Changes of clothes? Got him. My makeup. In a small bag next to you. Sunscreen and a hat? Don't worry, it's all here. Claire nodded in satisfaction, then subconsciously glanced over at her boyfriend's suitcase. She couldn't help but laugh. We're only going for 3 days and 2 nights. Why did you pack so many stockings for me? Leo remained poker-faced, his tone righteous. Just in case. It's convenient to have extras to change into. Claire shot him a playful, exasperated look. We're going to be taking pictures in traditional robes in the historic town. I won't be able to wear these. Leo's expression didn't falter. It's fine. Stockings go great with traditional robes. As he spoke, he shot a look at his parrot, signaling for help. Reasonable understood immediately and flapped his wings, squawking loudly. Reasonable. Reasonable. The next second, he was swatted away by his mistress, who then gave her boyfriend a sideways glance and a cool, single-word verdict. Perv. Criticism aside, the stockings were ultimately not removed from the suitcase. Even if she couldn't wear them while taking photos in town, she could still wear them at the hotel at night. Man, out in the world, they could be master strategists, movers, and shakers. But back home with their girlfriends, they always had these pathetic little hobbies. Claire shook her head gently, a faint smile playing on her lips. A thought occurred to her, and the girl tilted her head, looking pensive. According to the popular internet slang of the future, this should be called attack speed gear. It seemed it wasn't just stockings. You needed to combine them with other pieces for a full set. It sounded a little strange, but she could research it when she had the chance and see how her little boyfriend reacted. With the luggage packed and checked, the couple, carrying their bags and their clumsy bird, rushed out the door. This trip to Clear Creek Historic Town was planned for 3 days and 2 nights. Unlike their spring trip to Spirit Springs Mountain, where they drove themselves, this time their activities would be centered in the town itself, mostly walking and maybe even taking a boat ride. So, they had all agreed yesterday, no cars. They would take the bullet train from the East Bay station. It was more convenient and less of a hassle. The decision was made. Everyone happily agreed, no objections. Except for the Maybach. It was not happy. As the couple and their parrot left the front yard of the LNS house, the Maybach parked in its spot was cruelly abandoned. It watched forlornly as its master and mistress walked away with that stupid, fat parrot. Maybach. Sad Maybach. JPG. 2 people, 1 bird. The family of 3 left with their luggage and first went to the east gate of the university to meet up with their friends from the 2 dorms. The group hailed 2 minivans, stuffed the luggage into the back, and piled in, heading for the East Bay train station in the city. 40 minutes later, the 8 of them arrived at their destination. At the entrance of the East Bay station, they met up with Clark Sterling and Lily Liu, who had come directly from the city. The 2 had discovered yesterday at the LNS house that they both lived in the city and not far from each other, so they had arranged to travel together. With that, the 10-person fall trip group was assembled. Hey, what about Kevin and his girl? Marco Shaw remembered his good buddy over in Portland. Dylan nodded eagerly. He was an honorary member of Room 520, after all, the perfect 3rd member of their Gotham Brothers duo. Too bad he already had a girlfriend, otherwise he would have been officially inducted. It had been a while. He missed him. Leo casually explained, they're taking a train directly from Portland to Clear Creek. We already arranged it. We'll meet up with them in town. Everyone understood. Molly Tang, happily munching on a date cake her boyfriend had thoughtfully brought, chewed and swallowed, then pumped her fist in the air, exclaiming indistinctly, "Then we're all here? Let's go. Time to move out." It was still late 2008. The main East Bay high-speed rail station was under construction and wouldn't open for another 2 years. So, they were at the old East Bay station in the city. They bought their tickets at the window and prepared to line up for boarding. It was the fall break, and the number of travelers was high. It wasn't even peak time yet, but the station was already a sea of people, bustling with noise. All 10 ticket gates were clogged. The guys instinctively formed a protective circle around the girls to shield them from any malicious pushing or groping hands. Leo also kept his girlfriend close, reminding her, be careful. Don't lose anything. The security at the East Bay station wasn't the best back then, and thieves often took advantage of the holiday rush. Last winter break, a certain third-generation heir of the Wei family had learned that the hard way. His wallet was gone. He couldn't even afford a bowl of noodles and had to shamelessly come mooching off someone else's broth. Hearing her boyfriend's reminder, Claire nodded, her eyes suddenly sharp as she scanned her surroundings. Losing a little money was no big deal. But the platinum double ring pendant her boyfriend gave her for her birthday and the red thread of destiny from the chapel on Serenity Peak on her wrist, those two treasures could not be lost. If a thief dared to try anything, a hand for a hand. As the thought crossed her mind, a murderous aura emanated from the Sterling family's eldest daughter. Many of the other passengers in line nearby shivered, looking around in confusion. It's so cool in here. Did the train station recently install new air conditioning? Finally, the group reached the ticket gate. The ticket agent was a middle-aged man, clearly overwhelmed by the holiday crowd and his massive workload. Hey, no pushing. IDs and tickets out. One at a time. He was losing his patience. Then he looked up and saw Molly Tang, the first in their line. His eyes instantly lit up. Whoa, what an adorable university girl. His mood improved considerably. Next, he looked up again and saw Jay Jiang behind Molly. The ticket agent's eyes lit up again. Another beauty. Then the third, fourth, and fifth, Quinn Liu, Lily Liu, and Claire Sterling, passed through the gate. The middle-aged agent's eyes lit up again and again and again. As he checked their tickets, he provided a running commentary in his head. A beauty, another beauty, a great beauty, a top-tier goddess. Whoa, a handsome guy, a human, a suspected introvert, a gorilla. What the? Is that a bird? This tour group has a pretty complex lineup. The fall break was always a peak travel season. This year was no exception. For popular destinations, it was often difficult to buy not just entrance tickets, but even train tickets. Fortunately, the journey from East Bay to Clear Creek Historic Town was only 2 hours. The group wasn't picky. They were perfectly happy to have gotten adjoining coach class seats. This was a young person's trip. Unlike middle-aged or older folks who would spare no expense for comfort and relaxation, for them, the lively atmosphere of being with friends was more important than anything. Even on a tight budget, there was a unique kind of joy to be found. After boarding the train, they found their coach class seats. They had bought 10 adjoining seats, which turned out to be 2 sets of a 2+3 configuration, perfectly filling 2 rows, one behind the other. The seats on the train could also be rotated. Once they turned the seats around, everyone could sit face to face, making it much easier to chat. After stowing their luggage in the overhead racks, everyone sat down happily. Leon, with practiced ease, pulled a mountain of snacks out of his backpack to share. Here, for anyone who hasn't had breakfast, have a bite. A cheer went up from the group. All praise the date cake guy. Then they looked at the pile of snacks on the small table. It was a dazzling and diverse array. Date paste crisps, date paste cookies, traditional date cakes, date stuffed with walnuts, date rolls. The Mid-Autumn Festival had just passed, and there were even date cake-flavored mooncakes. Everyone. This was the date cake guy's most powerful move yet. Clark Sterling and some of the others had only recently met the group and didn't know them well. Staring at the magnificent spread of date-themed snacks, their eyes glazed over, completely stunned. After a long moment, Clark turned to Marco and asked in a low voice, "Does Leon's family make date cakes? Is he a brand ambassador or something?" Marco scoffed. "An ambassador? You're underestimating our boss." He waved his hand grandly. "He's the living embodiment of date cakes." The pile of snacks on the table, while varied, was admittedly a bit too heavy on the date cakes. Beside them, Claire thought for a moment and then bent down to rummage through her bag. "If it's too monotonous, I brought some cookies too." After receiving frequent positive feedback from Yvonne recently, which had boosted her morale, Chef Sterling's passion for baking had been rekindled. The moment she spoke, everyone's face turned pale with horror. Wait a minute, it's not monotonous. Not at all. But it was too late. Chef Sterling's handmade cookies were already out. A full bag was placed on the table, and their presence somehow made Leon's pile of date snacks seem dim in comparison. A wave of dread washed over the group, their faces ashen. And they were on a train. There was no escape. Ultimately, resigned to their fate, they hesitantly picked up the cookies. With the resolve of martyrs, they took a tentative bite. The outer shell was crispy, the inside soft, sweet, and chewy. A faint, perfectly balanced caramelized aroma lingered on the palate. Everyone. Dylan was so shocked he almost spoke. Marco's eyes were wide as he muttered to himself. Holy shit. Am I dead? Am I hallucinating? Why does this actually taste good? Beside them, Leo explained with a smile. Claire made them last night. She was on a video call with Mrs. Fong, who was giving her remote instructions. Everyone had heard of Mrs. Fong before. The realization dawned on them instantly. The next second, they were so moved they were on the verge of tears. Mrs. Fong, our hero. They immediately started planning to send her a commemorative banner in Northwood. Quinn Liu asked curiously, Hey, I thought Mrs. Feng was a professional Chinese cuisine chef. She knows how to bake pastries too. Claire nodded proudly, answering nonchalantly, Mrs. Feng spent a few years at the Royal Culinary Institute in London. She even won the school's Medal of Honor. Everyone was once again filled with awe and respect. Holy crap, she might have actually served the Queen of England. Having escaped death's door, what they thought would be a culinary hell turned out to be a culinary heaven, and everyone's spirits were revived. Marco eagerly reached for another cookie. Damn, if they're this good, I'm having more. He tossed a whole cookie into his mouth and bit down. Crunch, the familiar sound of metal on metal. The expression on Marco's face froze. Leo looked at his buddy with sympathy and explained, remote guidance. There are bound to be a few mistakes. About 20% of this batch are defective. In his cage, Reasonable flapped his wings, gloating. Gawk, unlucky. Gawk, unlucky. Why do you think he and his king dad hadn't tried any? They knew how to dodge a bullet. Hearing this, the faces of everyone else in the group changed again. A 20% fatality rate. Was this a death lottery or Russian roulette? Holy shit, this was even more terrifying than all of them being inedible. The engine rumbled, wheels grinding against the tracks. The train sped through the bright morning sunlight. October was the heart of autumn. The tracks cut through golden wheat fields on both sides of the land. As the train roared past, the waves of wheat bowed in the wind like the tide. It was a beautiful, magnificent sight that cleansed the soul. The hard seats in coach class weren't the most comfortable, but the view of the autumn morning reflected in the window was more than enough to please the eye. Paired with the laughter and chatter of the young men and women in the seats, it created an even greater sense of vibrant energy. Quinn Liu excitedly suggested they take a group photo in the train car. Everyone eagerly agreed. Claire took out her camera, and the fat parrot in the cage flew out, not about to be upstaged. He strutted proudly to the camera on the small table. Smile, smile, say cheese, cheese. Reasonable's photography skills were becoming more and more refined. The group of friends made all sorts of funny faces and goofy expressions for the camera, their laughter ringing out from time to time. To the other passengers in the car, it didn't sound noisy. They would turn their heads at the sound and see a group of lively young people laughing and joking. They couldn't help but smile, a mix of appreciation and nostalgia in their eyes. How wonderful. This is youth. While taking photos, Claire and Leo snuggled close together, striking affectionate poses for the camera. They were having the time of their lives. Then Claire thought of something, a hint of regret in her voice. It's a shame Annie Cakes and Wyatt the punching bag couldn't come. Leo reached out and naturally tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear, comforting her with a smile. It's fine. There will be other chances. As he said this, he also seemed to remember something, a puzzled look on his face. Yesterday, before we left, what did Mr. Chen say? That it was no big deal they couldn't make it. That was actually a good thing. The same bright morning sun shone down on the streets of East Bay. Kongping Road, the office building. Wyatt Wei came downstairs from the Mako Entertainment office. He stood by the side of the road, waiting to hail a cab. He had come to the office early this morning. Most of the employees in his tech development department were already on vacation. As the department head, he had made a special trip to organize the project's progress. Of course, it wasn't just the tech department. The artists in the art department were on vacation too. The only exception was a certain art department team lead, who, in order to fulfill her deal with a certain junior for some Emperor-grade fertilizer, was also miserably at the office early, rushing her work. Just now, as he was taking the elevator down, the doors were about to close when a certain clueless Zhao had zipped in, frantically urging him to close the doors. Quick, quick, close it. Where are you going? Oh, it doesn't matter. Take me with you. Take me with you. As long as I can escape. I don't want to be rushing work during the holiday. I want a day off too. But just as the elevator doors were about to close again, a certain gibberish girl, the supervisor, arrived. Her beautiful face carried a nascent air of cool authority. Say, Nair, you made a promise. You can't back out. And then clueless Zhao was dragged out, wailing. As she was being hauled away, she kept looking back at the elevator, her eyes filled with a desperate longing for freedom. Thinking of this, Wyatt, now standing downstairs on the street, subconsciously glanced up at the company building. He saw a figure pressed against the second-floor window, clinging tightly to the glass, looking at him with a hopeful, pleading expression. She was even holding up a sign, Save me. The next second, she was yanked back by a delicate hand. Then, Yvonne Moreau's figure appeared at the window. Her face was cool and authoritative as she nodded slightly at Wyatt and waved goodbye. Wyatt couldn't help but shake his head and chuckle. This junior, Yvonne, Yesterday, when she left, she had been a bit of a gibbering mess, hard to understand. But she really did have a bit of the same aura as Claire the Demoness. Thinking of his childhood friend made Wyatt subconsciously recall the scene he had witnessed at the gate of the LNS house last night. The intimate, perfect picture of the master and mistress of the house. And he thought of his seemingly calm and natural exchange and goodbye with a certain girl. He felt a little dazed. A sense of melancholy washed over him. He pulled his thoughts back to the present. The eldest grandson of the Wei family's third generation shook his head again and smiled faintly. A taxi pulled up nearby. Wyatt waved it down and got in. Today, he had to inspect the family's perfume company. Those messy romantic affairs could be set aside for now. Business was more important. After all, even if they had said, "See you next time," how many coincidental chances and next times could there really be? Half an hour later, Aria Perfume's headquarters, a subsidiary of the Wei Group from D.C. As the eldest grandson of the Wei family's third generation, flanked by several company executives, walked through the corridor and into the conference room, his aura was calm and commanding. The director of Area's planning department hastily led his team to their feet. "Mr. Wei." Wyatt nodded slightly, his gaze sweeping coolly over the room. Then, his eyes uncontrollably landed on a familiar, striking figure at the far end of the conference table. And there, they froze. He was stunned. The other person also noticed his gaze and looked up. And then, she also froze. Stunned. "Wyatt? Question mark. Anna? Wahoo. Daily request for chapter boosts and gifts." The morning light was just right. In a tea house in downtown East Bay, in a semi-open sunroom, one could admire the autumn scenery of the city streets through the transparent floor-to-ceiling windows. Inside, at a solid wood tea table, the owner and a customer sat across from each other, brewing tea over a small stove, relaxed and at ease. The guest was a bit distracted, casually admiring the decor of the tea house and the bustling streetscape outside. He couldn't help but suck in a breath, feeling a twinge in his teeth. Seriously, how do you have businesses everywhere? How much does a storefront in this part of the city even cost? The owner skillfully poured out the first pot of tea and started brewing a second. Hearing his old friend's question, he answered nonchalantly, "Small change, all small change." The guest's teeth itched. Damn rich people. The full name of the tea house was the Gilded Phoenix Tea House. The owner's identity was obvious, Mr. Qian. The identity of the customer sitting across from him was, therefore, no mystery either. It was the fall break, and Comrade Qian, with nothing better to do, had come to the city to inspect his various properties. Along the way, he had invited the retired Special Forces operative, who was also on vacation, to join him for a cup of tea. Mr. Qian cheerfully poured tea for Mr. Zhou. "Here, try this. Top-grade Maojian. The kind of stuff a poor bastard like you doesn't usually get to drink." The retired soldier coughed, choked, and rolled his eyes in annoyance. "I don't care for it. Good tea, bad tea, it all tastes the same to me." Then he shot a sideways glance at Mr. Qian. "You seem to be in a good mood today. You haven't stopped smiling since I got here. What's so funny?" Mr. Qian's thick eyebrows shot up. He thought of the master and mistress of the single slaughterhouse, whose red thread of destiny was still as solid as welded rebar. Then he thought of another young couple, full of coincidences, especially when he remembered the first-hand intelligence he had secretly gathered from each of them. Mr. Qian's grin grew even wider. "Nothing. Just thought of something that makes me happy." Then he looked at the retired soldier across from him. His curiosity piqued. "What's with you? You've been on edge since you got here. Did you get some girl pregnant?" He immediately launched into a righteous lecture. "Old Joe, I have to say something. Even though you're retired, you can't let your guard down. You have to use protection." Mr. Zhou? Question mark. When he finally processed what was being said, the retired soldier became so flustered and angry he nearly flipped the table. "What nonsense are you spouting? I'm single. What girl?" He downed the contents of his teacup, leaves and all, in one gulp, and took a deep breath to calm himself. Then Mr. Zhou couldn't help but sigh. "I'm worried about my young miss and that kid, Leo. They've gone on a trip for the break. I didn't go with them, and I can't help but feel a little uneasy." He was indeed uneasy. Over the past year or so of being with them, the retired soldier had discovered that his young miss and the young master were invincible when separate, but brought chaos to the world when they were together. It was like they had a natural talent for attracting disaster. They were a bigger magnet for trouble than any detective on TV. He wouldn't even mention all the trivial little incidents. That last time at the Sterling family gathering, when they went to the karaoke lounge afterward, he had stepped out to the back parking lot for a smoke and ran into those clueless thugs. Although they seemed to be looking for him specifically, he had a feeling that the young miss or the young master had something to do with it. But never mind that. What truly worried him was the danger they encountered the last time they went on a trip. The spring trip to Spirit Springs Mountain. They had skipped man-made disasters and gone straight to battling a natural one. Although he wasn't there himself, he could imagine the terror of that night from the few words the young miss had nonchalantly mentioned afterward, and from the battered state of the Maybach. Thank goodness for the Maybach. The young miss had told him not to tell Mr. Sterling, and he hadn't dared to. When he took the Maybach back to the factory for major repairs, he felt like getting on his knees and kowtowing to the car in gratitude for saving them. One spring trip had resulted in such a terrifying incident. This time it was a fall trip. Who knew what kind of trouble they might run into? So, before the young miss and master left, he had eagerly volunteered to accompany them. But his offer was decisively rejected by the young miss. No need. It's a rare holiday, Mr. Joe. You should get some rest too. It's just a normal trip. There won't be any problems. Leo and I aren't kids anymore. We can't be attracting disaster every day. At the time, the young miss had spoken in a light, joking tone, but her decision was final and not up for debate. Although the retired soldier was worried, he could only accept it. And now, sitting in the tea house, thinking about them on their trip, he couldn't help but feel anxious. Seeing his old friend so on edge, Mr. Chien poured him another cup of tea and offered some comfort. Hey, it's fine. You worry too much. They're good, reliable kids. They can handle any trouble they run into. Besides, what kind of trouble could there be in Clear Creek Historic Town? That's a good place. There's even a century-old temple, full of deep Buddhist wisdom and good fortune. They might even run into some good luck there. He then thumped his chest confidently. If you're really that worried, I'll give my fourth brother, the one who's a monk at the temple, a call. I'll have him keep an eye on them. Mr. Joe felt a little better after hearing this and nodded slightly. Then he looked at Mr. Chien, puzzled. With your family's resources, why did your fourth brother run off to become a monk? What was he thinking? It was as if the question had struck a chord with Mr. Chien. He slapped his thigh in regret. My fourth brother is the smartest one in our Chien family. He's so cultured, has the highest education level, and yet he had to become a monk. What a waste. The retired soldier was impressed. Really? A PhD? A postdoc? Mr. Chien waved his hand grandly, full of spirit. High school, and he even studied for a full 5 years. Mr. Joe. Serafina Vance also considered herself the smartest and most capable person at the quad. She had more than enough confidence in this. After all, she had not disappointed the trust and expectations of the company's upper management. The star agent of the marketing department had transformed into a corporate spy. She had successfully and easily infiltrated the Portland branch of their target, Mako Entertainment. Although she had made little progress in conquering the company's boss, Kevin Zhao, Serafina was not discouraged. After all, if he had been so easily won over, it would have been suspicious. Since a direct assault wasn't working, she planned to change her strategy for now. She would start from other angles, working her way in from the side to thoroughly understand the ins and outs of Mako Entertainment. It was the fall break, and the big boss, Kevin Zhao, had taken his girlfriend on a trip. Before he left, he had kindly offered to take her along as a reward for being the most diligent employee in the branch. She had been tempted at first. She thought that perhaps this trip with his friends was just a cover, and that he might be secretly meeting with the mysterious CSO of Happy Nest. But when she inquired further and learned that it was just some brother ran named Leo and a bunch of ordinary college students, she immediately lost interest. She righteously declined, citing her dedication to work and desire to work overtime as her reason. And so, she remained at the Portland branch. Bright sunlight streamed into the office. Alone, Serafina Vance looked around with satisfaction, her confidence and ambition soaring once again. So what if she had to work overtime during the break? With the big boss Kevin Zhao away, she might be able to dig up some other intelligence from the company. She had already successfully connected with the head of the art department at the East Bay headquarters, a team lead named Isabella Zhao. She had probed her for information several times, pretending to casually ask about the company. And she had already made some discoveries. The big boss of the company was indeed Kevin Zhao. According to team lead Isabella Zhao's description, the personality and style of the big boss, Kevin Zhao, were completely different from what she had seen in Portland. They were like two different people. The sunlight fell on Serafina Vance's face, illuminating the confident smile of the quad's star marketing agent. Give her a little more time. Her understanding of Kevin Zhao would deepen, and she would be that much closer to the truth. Around noon, the train arrived at Clear Creek Station. Kevin Zhao and Tessa Yuan had arrived half an hour earlier and were waiting at the arrivals hall exit. When the main group came out, they met up. Kevin, now the head of Mako Entertainment's Portland branch, immediately began reporting on the branch's recent progress to Leo. He casually mentioned his original plan to bring his top employee on the trip. That's Serafina Vance. She's an incredible worker. She works like a woman possessed. She does the work of 3 people, more diligent than an ox in a field. Speaking of his branch's best employee, Kevin was full of praise. I was even planning to bring her along to meet you, Brother Rand, the real big boss, but she refused. She said she still had work to do at the branch and wanted to stay behind to work overtime during the holiday. TSK, that kind of dedication. I'd feel guilty if I didn't give her a raise. Leo also nodded repeatedly. A good employee indeed. I should meet her in person sometime. Kevin slapped his thigh. Definitely. Seriously, she's hardworking, capable, not arrogant, and even works overtime on her own initiative. And she's beautiful on top of that. You can't find employees like that these days, even if you search with a lantern. He sighed with emotion. Leo stroked his chin. Well, actually, he had a couple of promising talents like that at his East Bay headquarters too. While Leo and Kevin were chatting, Tessa Yuan joined Claire and the other girls. It had been a while since they had seen each other. The moment they met, they erupted into a flurry of affectionate laughter and playful teasing, their cheerful voices drawing appreciative and admiring glances from other tourists passing by. The girls from room 205 were already good friends with Tessa. It was Lily Liu's first time meeting her. Their personalities were quite similar. Both were gentle yet gracious. Claire made the introductions. Tessa Yuan, my high school classmate and best friend. Lily Liu, my university friend, and now a good friend as well. Lily looked at Tessa and extended her hand with a generous smile. Just call me Lily. I've heard so much about you. Claire's mentioned you many times. I haven't known Claire as long as you have, but we're very close now. She even asked me to be her maid of honor at her wedding. Tessa smiled and shook Lily's hand lightly. I've heard Claire talk about you too, eh? Maid of honor. She suddenly paused. The smile on Miss Yuan's face stiffened slightly. She shot a sideways glance at Claire, then turned back to Lily, her smile returning. What a coincidence. Back in high school, Claire already promised I would be her maid of honor. Since we're both maids of honor, I wonder if there's a ranking system. Lily's smile was gentle, her voice soft. It's fine, I don't mind those things. We should respect Claire's choice. The corner of Tessa's mouth twitched, but her smile didn't falter. Of course, the future bride gets to decide. We'll just let Claire choose later. The 2 women smiled at each other. As their eyes met, dangerous sparks seemed to fly in the air. A strange kind of showdown was unfolding. Claire was the first to react. She gracefully slipped away, looking around nonchalantly as she walked off. Reasonable? Reasonable. Where did you go? Hearing his mistress's call, the fat parrot flew over, chirping, Queen Mom. Queen Mom. The next second his mistress deftly caught him and threw him like a baseball into the distance. Then, the young miss of the Sterling family, without batting an eye, continued to scan her surroundings. Oh, where did he go? That clumsy bird is so much trouble. The fat parrot, tumbling head over heels in midair, ? He didn't know what had just happened, but there must have been a good reason for his Queen Mom's actions. The guys from room 520 and Clark Sterling weren't slow to react either. They quickly scurried over to Leo and Kevin. Hey, Kevin. Long time no see. Ha, quick, let me give you a hug. The girls from room 205 were a bit slower and had no excuse to escape. They could only awkwardly stare up at the ceiling, trying to act casual. Wow, this ceiling is really ceiling-wide. The roof of the train station is so nice. After the commotion, the newly assembled 12-person tour group finally emerged from the Clear Creek train station. They hailed a few cabs and headed towards the historic town. Clear Creek Historic Town was located in the eastern suburbs of Clear Creek County. The entire town was a scenic area, and you had to buy tickets right at the entrance. The inns inside the scenic area were also quite expensive, at least double the price of those outside. But the group had already discussed this when they were planning the trip. Since they were already here for a better experience, they would spend the extra money and stay inside the scenic area. After buying their tickets, the group entered the town. It was the fall break, and even though it was still morning, the town was already bustling with tourists. The ancient stone-paved streets were crowded and noisy. This was Clear Creek in 2008, before its tourism resources were fully developed and promoted. In a few years, the moat surrounding the town would probably be filled with tourists. But it was definitely worth a visit. Just inside the entrance, as far as the eye could see, were moss-covered bluestone paths and white walls with dark-tiled roofs reflecting in the shimmering water. Black canopied boats bobbed gently under small bridges, breaking the reflection of the willow branches. In the distance, lanterns hung from a tea house, and wind chimes on the eaves tinkled softly. A breeze carrying the scent of lotus flowers swept past the young men and women, bringing with it the tranquil charm of a riverside town. As they strolled through the streets, even this brief, casual walk was enough to make them feel refreshed and delighted, confirming that this trip was well worth it. However, they ran into a problem when it came to finding an inn. Most of the inns and goose houses were already fully booked. After searching for a long time, they finally found one with vacant rooms. The inn's name also had a touch of ancient elegance, the Tranquility Inn. The owner was a friendly, middle-aged local man. When he saw the group come in, his eyes lit up again and again. Wow, so many beautiful young ladies. What a sight for sore eyes. Oh, and some guys too. Fine. While they were checking in at the front desk, Claire and Leo, Leon and Molly, and Kevin and Tessa, the three official couples, all booked rooms with king-size beds. That left 6 people, 3 men and 3 women. As it happened, there were 2 3-person suites left. Perfectly reasonable. While they were registering one by one, the others chatted and laughed on the side. Leo noticed that Tessa and Lily seemed to have reconciled, holding hands and chatting intimately, their laughter ringing out from time to time, as if the tense confrontation in the station had never happened. He curiously asked his girlfriend about it. Claire replied with a straight face, "Oh, I told them both that Annie Cakes also wants to be the first maid of honor." And just like that, the 2 women temporarily set aside their competition and joined forces against a common enemy. Leo understood and gave his girlfriend a thumbs up. A brilliant move to divert the conflict. Soon, everyone had finished registering and got their room keys, ready to take their luggage to their rooms. The owner was kind enough to help the girls with their bags. As he led the way, he enthusiastically introduced the various attractions in the town. Marco remembered what Mr. Chen had mentioned yesterday about the old temple and asked about it. Then owner's eyes lit up. "Oh, yes, that's a century-old temple. The fortunes and prayers there are very effective. It used to be a local secret. Now, many tourists from out of town go there to offer incense and pray. It's called the Orchard of Fate Temple. Happy weekend. Everyone daily requests for chapter boosts and gifts." The 2 3-person suites were on the 2nd floor of the Tranquility Inn. The 3 couples' rooms were on the 3rd. The small town inn, with its riverside charm, still had a touch of rustic simplicity. In terms of room types, it certainly didn't offer the various friendship suite services like the Gilded Phoenix chain of motels. The couple's rooms were just ordinary rooms with king-sized beds. All 3 were identical, so there was no need to choose. As he led the 3 couples up to the 3rd floor, the inn owner suddenly remembered something. "Oh, right, one of the rooms is actually a little different. When I ordered the mattresses, I got standard 2-meter, queen-sized ones for all of them, but the manufacturer sent me the wrong one for one of the beds. So, one of the rooms has a waterbed instead." He sounded apologetic. "If you're not used to it, I can have someone bring a regular one up from downstairs." Before he could finish, Leo and Kevin interrupted him almost simultaneously. "We're used to it. No need to change it. We'll take the waterbed room." They declared their intentions righteously. Then the 2 best friends looked at each other. Leo was triumphant. "My apologies, but I called it first." Kevin was dejected. "Damn, I was too slow." He was filled with infinite regret. Only Leon was the slowest to react. He looked stunned, and when he finally understood, he also felt a pang of regret. A waterbed? Huh. Even the date cake in his mouth didn't taste as good anymore. Beside him, Molly tugged on her boyfriend's hand and whispered comfortingly, "It's okay. When we get back to East Bay, we can find a place with a waterbed and try it out. I've even read about more exciting things in my novels." The room was chosen. Leo Hammer Wallace, with his girlfriend Bertha Sue in tow, entered the waterbed room with the air of a victor. The first thing they saw was the conspicuous 2-meter waterbed. Reasonable flapped his wings and flew onto it, excitedly bouncing up and down on the surface. "Let's party. Let's party." The next second, he was swatted away by a hand. Stupid bird. Why was he trying to join in on the fun? Leo plopped himself down on the bed. He also felt the boing-boing sensation of a mattress beneath him. This was a completely different experience from the friendship vibrating bed at home. It was an eye-opener. So novel. Damn, the owner of this Tranquility Inn was a dark horse. He looked so simple and honest, but he had some tricks up his sleeve. Claire just put down the suitcase. When she turned around and saw her boyfriend bouncing on the waterbed with great enthusiasm, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "How old are you? Even a child isn't this immature," Leo declared righteously. "Kids can't play with this. This is for mature adults like us." Then, his excitement unabated, he vigorously patted the spot next to him, inviting his girlfriend over. No time to waste. Let's party. The fat parrot, who had been swatted onto the carpet, dizzily got up. The words sounded familiar. Those were his lines. Claire, however, was unmoved. She crossed her arms and glanced at her boyfriend. I'm not fooling around with you. It's already noon. Let's go get lunch first. With that, she turned and gracefully walked out the door. Leo, however, keenly picked up on the key word in Bertha Sue's sentence. First, he quickly scrambled to his feet and followed her out the door, asking, "Does that mean we can do it after lunch?" The young miss of the Sterling family didn't look back, her voice floating back to him. We'll see. Depends on your performance. At noon, the group left the Tranquility Inn and wandered through the streets and alleys of the old town. Then they found a quaint little restaurant for lunch. Restaurants in scenic areas had one major characteristic. They were expensive. A simple bowl of century egg congee cost $14, twice the price of one outside. Every bite tasted of burning money. The local specialty, Clear Creek meat zongzi, was quite good. The fragrance of the bamboo leaves permeated every grain of rice. When unwrapped, the sticky rice was fatty but not greasy, tender but not mushy. The salty, savory flavor filled the mouth, a truly satisfying experience. The only problem was that unwrapping the zongzi was a bit troublesome and left your hands sticky. As an excellent boyfriend, Leo was about to help his girlfriend unwrap hers, but he didn't even get the chance. The two future maids of honor, Lily Lu and Tessie Yuan, had already flanked Claire. They were incredibly attentive, one unwrapping a meat zongzi while the other offered an egg yolk one. Here, Claire, try this. Don't move, I'll feed you. Oh, you got some on your mouth. Don't move, let me wipe it for you. The young miss of the Sterling family was getting the bridal treatment early. No, this was better than the treatment a queen would get. The rest of the group watched, stunned. Kevin didn't like zongzi and found them too much trouble to unwrap, but just drinking congee was a bit bland. Marco sneakily passed him a bag of cookies. Kevin, try this. Bertha made them with Mrs. Feng's video guidance. They're delicious this time. Kevin's face lit up. Really? If Mrs. Feng taught her, they must be good. He popped a cookie into his mouth, chewed twice, and his eyes widened. They're really good. He ate several more in one go, full of praise. Marco and Dylan, who had been hoping to watch the show, were dumbfounded. Huh? Weren't these the death lottery cookies with a 20% fatality rate? How could he eat so many and be fine? The two Gotham brothers exchanged a suspicious look. Could it be that the rest were all good? Unconvinced, they each took a cookie and popped it into their mouths. The sound of metal on metal rang out, followed by two thuds as heavy objects hit the floor. The Gotham brothers. Double kill. After lunch, the group paid the bill and left the restaurant. They strolled through the old town, digesting their food and continuing their sightseeing. In the afternoon, the number of tourists in the scenic area had increased significantly. The bluestone paths were crowded with people, making it difficult to walk. This was where the fat parrot shone. Reasonable flapped his wings and flew into the air. After looking around, he let out a loud squawk. This way, this way. Then he led the way in one direction. The group was happy to have a parrot scout and follow behind. They were curious to see where Reasonable would lead them. A few moments later, filled with curiosity and anticipation, the group followed the fat parrot to their destination. Before them was a small pet market. Colorful birds of all kinds were preening and chirping. The fat parrot, on the other hand, dove right in, happily flitting from one birdcage to another, as busy and cheerful as could be. Visiting a brothel, parrot version. Everyone, Claire said with a blank expression. We need to deal with this stupid bird later. Leo nodded in agreement without hesitation. We're throwing out all the nature documentaries at home. What was the point of visiting a historic riverside town only to end up at a pet market? However, at that moment, Molly looked around and suddenly noticed something, her eyes lighting up. She excitedly pointed to a shop not far from the pet market. Hey, look, a traditional costume shop. Next to the pet market was a traditional costume shop. Before their trip, one of the activities the girls had planned was to take photos in traditional robes. It was a happy accident. They had stumbled upon just the place. The group shot a sideways glance at Reasonable, who was still fluttering around the pet market like a social butterfly, flirting with all the female birds. They decided to spare his life. Of course, he wouldn't get off scot-free. The remaining handmade cookies from Chef Sterling would be his to deal with, all by himself. The group headed over to the costume shop. Led by Molly Tang, the girls eagerly entered, their eyes scanning the store. When the shop owner saw the group of young university students, especially the line of beautiful girls. Her eyes lit up again and again. She immediately greeted them with enthusiasm, showering them with compliments. "Oh my, so many beautiful ladies. Here for some sightseeing photos. You have to try our clothes. I guarantee you'll all look like goddesses." As she spoke, her hands moved deftly. She snatched an ancient-style, light green long dress from a nearby rack and held it up to Molly, heaping on more praise. "Oh, this one is perfect. This one suits you, little beauty. You look so sweet and lovely in this." Encouraged by the other girls, Molly, full of curiosity and anticipation, took the dress to the changing room. She came out a moment later, and everyone's eyes lit up. The light green Ruchuan dress was like a tender willow branch, its hem swaying gently. A smoky blue ribbon cascaded down her shoulder, and an apricot blossom hairpin served as the perfect hair accessory. Paired with a set of delicate embroidered shoes, it complemented Molly's naturally cute demeanor. The girls gasped and applauded wildly. The boys were a bit stunned. When they came to their senses, Marco and Dylan nudged Leon, full of envy. "Damn, boss, you're so lucky. Molly is too cute." Leon was already grinning from ear to ear. This was just a simple change of clothes. They could still do a more elaborate full makeover. From hairstyle to makeup, I'm a professional here. I guarantee I'll turn you, little beauty, into a wealthy young lady from ancient times, the shop owner declared confidently. Molly looked at herself in the mirror, her eyes shining with satisfaction. She even took a picture with her phone, but she wasn't in a hurry to get the full makeover. She turned and asked the owner expectantly, "Can you find a matching outfit for my boyfriend?" The owner was about to agree readily, but then she followed Molly's finger and saw Leon's burly figure and his honest, square face. The words died on her lips. After a moment of hesitation, she said, "We're out of stock on general and warrior costumes. We do have some for guards and bodyguards, though. Maybe this gentleman would like to try one of those." Young lady and scholar combo, crossmark. Young lady and bodyguard combo, heavy checkmark. Molly was the first to try on a costume, and the result was excellent. This inspired the other girls, who didn't even need the owner's recommendations. They started picking out outfits themselves and eagerly headed to the changing rooms. In 2008, the concept of cosplay was just starting to take off in the country, let alone the trend of traditional Chinese clothing. The costume shop in Clear Creek, though advertised as a place for hanfu photos, mostly had outfits borrowed from film sets. They were more like the period costumes commonly seen in TV dramas. Young ladies, servants, scholars, palace maids, concubines, they had all the roles covered. Of course, the girls had a blast trying them on. With their stunning looks and figures, they would have looked good even in potato sacks. Just look at a certain clueless Zhao, who walked around with a fertilizer bag on her head all day. When she went to the smoothie shop downstairs from the office, she managed to charm everyone from the staff to the customers. That's what you call being effortlessly beautiful. The guys, on the other hand, didn't fare as well. Leon's physique was too brawny, and they couldn't find a suitable outfit for him. He had to settle for a servant guard costume. With a fake beard, he actually looked quite fierce, like a top-tier bodyguard protecting his young mistress with unwavering loyalty. Clark Sterling, however, had the right build. He put on a scholar's green robe and held a folding fan. He looked less timid than usual and had more of a dashing, scholarly air. The girls cheered and applauded. "Cousin Clark, you look so handsome. Wow, some lucky girl is going to snatch you up one day." Overwhelmed by the compliments, Clark's composure broke and he blushed. No, you're too kind." He was so flustered he started to sweat. Beside him, Lily thoughtfully handed him a tissue. Clark quickly thanked her, and, as he took it, accidentally brushed her fingers. He froze, then apologized profusely. Lily also quickly withdrew her hand, smiling calmly as if nothing had happened. But when she turned away, the tips of her ears were a little red. Seeing Clark's handsome transformation, Marco and Dylan were also eager to try. Ignoring the owner's suggestions, they grabbed 2 outfits and rushed to the changing rooms. A moment later, they emerged, full of confidence and swagger. They were expecting to see themselves as dashing, handsome gentlemen. They politely bowed to each other with a bit of mutual flattery. "Master Dylan, you look incredibly handsome. Master Marco, you are no less impressive." The next second, they saw what the other was wearing and both froze. Holy shit. Then they rushed to a mirror. Holy shit. They had worn the wrong damn outfits. These weren't scholar robes. These were eunuch robes. What master? They were eunuchs now. When Claire Sterling emerged from the changing room in her period costume, the entire shop fell silent for a moment. Only the sound of sharp intakes of breath could be heard. Quinn Liu's eyes widened. This is absolutely stunning. The shop had a dragon robe from a TV drama. Leo had wanted to try it on, but it was a bit too small. So, everyone had encouraged Claire to try it instead. The quality of the robe itself was only average, and the shop wall was covered with photos of previous female customers wearing it, but the effect had always been mediocre. But when Claire appeared in it, the presence she exuded was completely different. Her dark hair was styled in a high bun, and her fair skin looked even more coolly noble against the dark, wide sleeves. The dragon robe was magnificent, its brocade train trailing behind her. The woman lifted her chin slightly, her calm gaze sweeping over them with a cool authority. It was as if a true empress had arrived. Her aura was overwhelming. Everyone was stunned into silence. As Empress Sterling's gaze swept over them, they held their breath, not daring to make a sound, until the Empress's eyes fell on a certain someone. She raised an eyebrow. She gracefully walked over to him and looked him up and down. Then, the corners of her lips curled into a faint smile. "What is your name?" The handsome young man puffed out his chest and answered with a straight face. "Your Majesty, my name is Leo Hammer." The Empress's lips twitched, almost breaking character, but she maintained her calm authority and nodded slightly. "A bit of stupid name, but your looks are acceptable. You may stay. You will attend to me tonight." The commoner, Leo Hammer, was overjoyed. "Thank you for your grace, your Majesty." Everyone. They had all snapped out of it by now, their faces dark as they listened, their minds twisting with dark, roaring thoughts. "Damn you, you annoying couple. You should be executed." Executed? What empress? A tyrant. An absolute tyrant. We must rebel. The next second, as if sensing their thoughts, Empress Sterling turned her gaze upon them and raised an eyebrow. Any objections? No objections. Absolutely no objections. Your Majesty is wise. Such a keen eye for talent. A brilliant choice. Tomorrow, a super important main plot point. Hey, the third knife is before the ending. It won't be that soon. Before that, there are two big climaxes and the reunion of the male and female leads after rebirth. There's plenty to make you moved, excited, and cry. Requesting a chapter boost and gifts. After a round of trying on costumes in the shop, everyone was having a blast. They could have paid a little extra to rent the outfits and take more photos at various spots around the historic town. It wasn't about the money. The problem was that the town was just too crowded with tourists during the fall break. Every scenic spot was packed. The moment they tried to step outside in their costumes, they attracted a massive amount of attention. A wave of gasps and murmurs of admiration rippled through the crowd. People immediately swarmed them, eager to take photos with the stunningly dressed women. A few middle-aged tourists were even interested in Leon, who was dressed as a guard. They circled him, looking him up and down, then eagerly started negotiating. "Hello, we're planning to tour the town for 3 days. How much would you charge to be our bodyguard?" They actually thought he was a Real guard. Some young girls also spotted Clark Sterling in his refined scholar's attire. Their eyes lit up as they approached him with their cameras. "Hey, handsome, can we take a picture with you?" Clark, being naturally shy and introverted, was overwhelmed by the attention. As he stood there, flustered and awkward, Lily Liu stepped in. With a graceful smile, she gently guided the approaching girls to a safe distance. "I'm sorry, we're tourists too. We're not here to take photos with people." The girls were a little disappointed, but when they saw Lily's own beauty, they lost their nerve and reluctantly walked away. Clark breathed a sigh of relief and turned to thank Lily. Lily smiled slightly. "It's nothing. Friends help each other out. It's perfectly reasonable." As she said the words, the literature department's girl paused for a moment. That line, why did it sound so familiar? Leo hadn't found a suitable costume in the shop, so he wasn't dressed up like the others. But a handsome man doesn't need clothes to stand out. He was just casually leaning against a pillar by the entrance, watching the commotion, when several young women noticed him, their eyes lighting up. "Wow, this one's even more handsome." They were about to make their move and strike up a conversation. But the next second, a cool, noble figure in an empress's black robe seemed to appear out of nowhere, blocking him from view and cutting off all covetous gazes. The young women looked up, confused, and were met with a stunningly beautiful face and a gaze that was both cool and deadly. The message in her eyes was clear and concise. "This one is mine. Don't touch." The young women shivered and instantly abandoned their original plans. "Damn it, this one is even more unbeatable than the last one. We don't stand a chance." Claire Sterling herself was in the same situation. Normally, even in her everyday clothes, she turned heads wherever she went. Today, in the Empress's black robe, She nearly caused a riot the moment she stepped out of the shop. People were whispering amongst themselves, thinking she was some big celebrity filming a movie in the town. Of course, intimidated by her unapproachable, icy aura, not many dared to ask for a photo. But countless people were gathered around, secretly admiring her and trying to snap a few pictures from a distance. So, if they were to actually wander around the town in their costumes, they would likely cause a traffic jam wherever they went. In the end, they regretfully gave up on the idea. They settled for taking some photos inside the shop and at the entrance. For the grand finale, they took a funny picture of everyone bowing to the Empress. Marco led the charge with a booming voice, "We greet your majesty." The others followed suit, and the air was filled with laughter. Claire also smiled, playing along and raising a hand gracefully. "You may rise. You are hereby named Imperial Consort, and you are also named Imperial Consort." She casually bestowed titles upon her group of girlfriends. When she turned to the men, she was just as decisive. "You are all named eunuchs." The men: "We were just playing along with a little role play. Why do we suddenly feel like we've lost something very important?" After the fun and photos, the group changed back into their own clothes, paid, and left the shop with their pictures. It was still early. Tessa Yuan suggested they visit the former residences of modern celebrities and the museum within the scenic area, and everyone happily agreed. The former residences were the homes of several literary figures from the Republic of China era. The museum displayed artifacts from the town's century-long history. For most people, it wouldn't be very interesting. But for this group of high-achieving students, it was a fascinating and enjoyable experience. In the museum, Claire enthusiastically pulled Leo over to take some pictures together. They were just ordinary tourist couple photos, but when the single slaughterhouse power couple stood in front of the camera, the results were still breathtaking. One photo was taken in front of a glass display case containing a gem-encrusted jade bracelet and a thumb ring. According to the description, they belonged to a married couple from a wealthy family in the late Qing and early Republican era. They were engagement gifts. The couple's love must have been deep. Beneath the jewelry was a piece of yellowed silk, embroidered with 2 lines of golden thread. Years may pass, space and time may shift, only our bond will not fade. Hoping for the next life, may our fates intertwine again. It was a moving sight. Although the silk was yellowed, the deep love of an ordinary couple from a century ago felt fresh and new, as if it could break through the barriers of time. It was sealed in history, timeless and eternal, still shining brightly today. Standing in front of the display case, Claire looked at the jade bracelet and thumb ring, her gaze falling on the yellowed silk. She softly read the words aloud, her eyes shimmering with emotion. She sighed in admiration. "How beautiful!" Leo walked up and took her hand, smiling slightly. "Are you envious?" Claire turned to look at him and raised an eyebrow. "I'm not. We're better." As she spoke, she lifted her hand, showing him the red thread of destiny on her wrist, then pointed to the platinum double-ring pendant on her chest, her smile radiant. "Engagement gifts? We have them too." The group continued their sightseeing tour. As evening approached, they returned to the Tranquility Inn, Content. As they walked in, they saw the inn owner chatting with someone at the front desk. The person's head was bald and shiny, making him particularly conspicuous. His yellow monk's robe also clearly revealed his identity. Seeing the group enter, the inn owner's eyes lit up, and he waved them over. "Hey, you're back. We were just talking about you. Master Sijin came looking for you." Thick eyebrows, a round, chubby face, and a warm, prosperous smile. The man chatting with the inn owner was none other than Mr. Qian's 4th brother, Master Sijin, who was now a monk at the Orchard of Fate Temple. Mr. Qian had called ahead and asked his 4th brother to look after his young friends. So, when Master Sijin came into town on business today, he remembered his younger brother's request and decided to stop by and check on them. "What a coincidence," Master Sijin said, his hands pressed together in a prayer position, a bright smile on his face. "The owner of the Tranquility Inn and I are old acquaintances. I didn't expect you all to be staying here. It must be the arrangement of the Buddha." He then introduced himself. His name was Sijin Qian, 2 gold short of his 6th brother. He had been a monk at the Orchard of Fate Temple for many years. His monastic name was Guik, which meant return to wealth. It seemed he couldn't escape his connection to money. The townspeople were used to calling him Master Sijin, as it was easier to say. A monk's focus is on spiritual practice. Other formalities aren't that important. "You could just call me Brother Sijin if it's easier for you," Master Sijin said with an easygoing and straightforward personality. He had a cheerful, good-natured demeanor that made him easy to approach. and his thick eyebrows were cast from the same mold as his 6 brothers. With Mr. Qian as a precedent, the group quickly warmed up to his brother. Marco Shaw asked curiously, "Brother Sijin, why did you decide to become a monk?" Just looking at Mr. Qian, it was clear that the Qian family's wealth was unfathomable. The kind where you could spend money your whole life and never worry. Master Sijin pressed his hands together and sighed. "It's because I was too rich. I saw through the vanity of wealth and pleasure early on. It's better to become a monk and pursue spiritual cultivation." Everyone. Damn it. Even though it sounded profound, for some reason, it made their teeth itch. That reason was so obnoxious. Then owner chimed in from the side. "Exactly. Master Sijin has great wisdom. I heard that before he became a monk, he was the most educated and promising one in his family. He saw through the illusions of the mortal world and decided to become a monk." He hyped him up enthusiastically. Master Sijin looked pleased, but tried to remain modest. "Owner, you flatter me. You young friends are all university students now? Where do you study? You haven't fallen behind in your studies, have you?" The group nodded humbly and answered his questions honestly. "I go to Berkeley." "Me too. Our buddy here was the salutatorian of Northwood. Claire was the valedictorian of Northwood. Oh, and Jade was the valedictorian of her city too." The answers came one after another. The smile on Master Sijin's face froze. He was stunned. Kevin looked a bit embarrassed. "I just went to Portland Tech. I'm kind of dragging everyone down." Another blow. Sijin Xian. The great Master Sijin had taken the SATs 3 times. His best score was still 300 points short of the admission requirement for Portland Tech. He was losing face. Sijin Xian coughed and forced a smile. "Ah, that's all very good, very promising." Then owner was also amazed to find that his inn was hosting a group of top students. He then eagerly spoke up for Master Sijin again. "You don't know, but Master Sijin is also very knowledgeable. Before he shaved his head and became a monk, he almost became a Taoist priest. He's well-versed in both Buddhism and Taoism." The group was intrigued, their eyes widening as they looked at Brother Sijin. "Really? Why did you switch to being a monk then?" Sijin Qian puffed out his chest, his expression profound. "This humble monk has a karmic connection with the Buddha." He paused, then awkwardly scratched his head, as if recalling something embarrassing. "And I started going bald early. When I went to the Taoist sanctuary, they thought I was a monk who had come to cause trouble and kicked me out." But then Master Sijin's spirits lifted again as he tried to regain his air of a master. However, this humble monk did learn a little bit of Taoist basics back then. "When it comes to reading people's faces and fortunes, I'm still quite skilled." Then owner nodded vigorously in support. Yes, Master Sijin is incredibly accurate at reading faces. He usually makes some extra money on the side with this skill when he's out collecting alms." Leo and Claire exchanged a look, both finding it amusing. "A monk who reads fortunes. He's crossing business lines, as expected of Mr. Qian's brother." But everyone else was intrigued and begged Brother Sijin to show them his skills. Having just lost face in the academic department, Master Sijin was not one to pass up an opportunity to redeem himself. He readily agreed. The group nominated Leo as the guinea pig. Under their expectant gazes, Sijin Qian confidently rubbed his bald head, composed himself, and his eyes suddenly became clear and sharp as he looked at Leo. However, the next moment, as if he had seen something strange, Master Sijin stared at Leo and froze. The group was waiting with bated breath for Master Sijin to display his skills, but he just stared at Leo for a long time without saying a word. They couldn't help but ask out of concern. Finally, Sijin Qian came back to his senses and shook his head. "It's nothing. Let me take another look." Unconvinced, he carefully studied Leo's face again, then took Leo's right hand and examined the lines on his palm. The more he looked, the more confused he became. "That's not right. Why can't I see it clearly?" Leo asked helpfully, "Does my good looks affect it? Is it harder to read someone who's too handsome?" Before he could finish, he was mobbed by Marco, Kevin, and the others. "Damn it, you're so obnoxious." "So what if you're handsome?" Claire also became interested and stepped forward with a smile. "Brother Sijin, why don't you take a look at me?" As she spoke, she extended her right hand. Sijin Qian's spirits lifted. All right, if he couldn't read one, he'd try another. He looked up at Claire, then at her right palm. But as he looked, he froze again. Claire raised an eyebrow, her face full of curiosity. "Brother Sijin, what do you see?" Sijin Qian's brow furrowed, his round, fortunate face showing complete bewilderment. "Strange. Why can't I read this one either?" Now, even then owner was surprised. "Well, that's odd. Master Seijin is usually spot on when he reads the fortunes of the townspeople. He's never been wrong before. Seijin Qian himself was even more confused. Although it was a bit unconventional for a monk to use Taoist fortune-telling techniques, he really did have some skill. Had he not eaten enough at the temple today, affecting his performance? 2 people in a row, and he couldn't read either of them. Unwilling to give up, he subconsciously looked at the others, and it seemed his ability had returned. For example, the young woman named Lily Liu. She had a fortunate destiny, but there was a faint shadow between her brows, indicating some recent misfortune, though she would likely be protected by a benefactor and overcome it. And the cute girl and the burly man couple next to her had a long and enduring love fate. Although there were faint lines between their brows indicating that their relationship might face challenges, their virtues would support each other, and they would move forward together. There would be bumps, but they would not hinder their progress, and they would eventually pass through like a light boat through shallow waters. Oh, and this young man named Dylan. He could tell at a glance that he was particularly suited to becoming a monk and practicing a vow of silence. The more Seijin Qian looked, the more puzzled he became, his brow furrowing deeper. He could read everyone else clearly. Why was it that he couldn't see anything for the first 2? Daily request for chapter boosts and gifts. A little preview of tomorrow's chapter title, Heaven's Secrets in Chaos. When there's a preview, it usually means something big is about to happen. He refused to believe it. He took another look, and another. One last, final, billionth look. In the end, the monk, Master Seijin, had stared back and forth at Leo and Claire's faces and palms so many times he was about to go cross-eyed. And he still couldn't see a damn thing. It was like they were shrouded in a thick fog, and he was just as lost in it as they were. Finally, the others couldn't help but chime in with words of comfort. Master Seijin, maybe you should just let it go. After all, you're a Buddhist monk. Reading palms is more of a Taoist thing. It's got to be tough trying to work outside your field. Master Seijin was still unwilling to give up, but he truly couldn't see anything, and there was nothing he could do about it. The owner of the Tranquility gave him a gentle reminder. Master Seijin, didn't the abbot send you out to run some errands? If you're any later, you'll hold things up. That snapped Seijin back to reality. He slapped his forehead. All right, my master is still waiting. I have to go to the convenience store to buy some instant ramen. He turned and asked the innkeeper where the nearest store was that still sold top ramen. It had to be that specific brand. Then, with a quick word to the group, telling them to stop by the temple tomorrow if they had time, he bolted out the door. In the dimming light of dusk, they could see his gleaming bald head bobbing into the distance, a surprisingly conspicuous beacon. The group stared after him, dumbfounded. A monk! Anava, top ramen! What the hell? How are those keywords even remotely connected? Suddenly, this Master Seijin character was starting to seem a little unreliable. Molly, disappointed at not having witnessed any mystical powers, sighed. I thought it would be like in the novels, with real fortune-telling superpowers. Kevin declared with righteous indignation, there's only one superpower in this world, and that's cash power. Marco stroked his chin, offering his own critique. That Master Seijin guy has the look of a wise sage, but he doesn't seem very dependable. I guess it makes sense. Seijin has 2 fewer genes than Lu Jin. He's definitely lacking something. Leon, ever the simple and kind-hearted one, offered a different perspective. I don't think Master Seijin was trying to trick us. Maybe he was just having an off day, not performing at his best. If we get a chance to visit the temple tomorrow, maybe he'll be back in top form and can do it then. As he spoke, the date cake guy was already mentally calculating whether he should bring some date cakes to Master Seijin tomorrow to help him get his strength back. Can monks even eat date cakes? Well, if they can eat top ramen, date cakes should be fine. As the subjects of the failed prophecy, Leo and Claire exchanged a glance, raising their eyebrows. Maybe the problem is us. Could be that we're so good-looking our radiant glow is blinding. Right, honey? Perfectly reasonable. The couple's back and forth ended with a knowing, intimate smile. Everyone else. Kevin's face was grim. You know, I think I liked them better before they were dating. Tessa sighed. Me too. Then she snapped out of it. Wait, what am I saying? They have to get married. I'm going to be the maid of honor. Keep it up. This is great. After a fun-filled afternoon, the group was still bursting with energy. Once dinner was finished, their spirits unabated, someone suggested they wander through the historic town again to soak in the nighttime scenery of the southern water town. At night, Clear Creek Historic Town was even more bustling than during the day. Crowds flowed through the streets. Children gathered excitedly around the food stalls and candy sculpture artists, while adults, cameras in hand, eagerly snapped photos of everything. The flashes of cameras flickered one after another, painting the ornate window lattices of tea houses and taverns in shimmering gold leaf. Leo's group moved through the throng, stopping occasionally at the roadside stalls. When they saw a vendor selling candied hawthorns, everyone bought one, munching on them happily as they walked. Molly even got a three-dimensional candy sculpture of a golden lantern, which glittered under the streetlights. She couldn't bear to eat it, holding it in her hands, utterly captivated. She hadn't even paid for it. Leon had bartered for it with the candy artist using a pile of his date cakes. A little tidbit from high school history. At this rate, date cakes could become a new form of currency. Passing by the river, they saw a boatman trying to drum up business for his canal boat tour. $20 a person, he called out warmly. 10 minutes, round trip. See the historic town from the water. The price wasn't steep. Besides, they were already here. Their interest piqued. The group eagerly lined up to get on. One boat could only hold 6 people, and while 2 boats would have been perfect, one was already occupied by a couple of tourists. Claire smiled and told the others to go first, saying she and Leo could wait. So, as their friends climbed excitedly into the boat, the boatman let out a hearty cry and began to row, carrying the cheerful group away from the bank and down the canal. On the shore, the young couple smiled as they watched their friends drift away. Not far behind them, a vendor was hawking the town's signature sweet floral liqueur. Claire turned to Leo with a smile and asked if he wanted to try some. After getting an enthusiastic yes, she told her boyfriend to wait by the riverbank while she gracefully turned and walked toward the liqueur stall. Leo watched her go, a small smile on his face. He pulled his gaze back and looked out at the night view of the town. The streets were filled with people, and the lights were as bright as day. The bustling, lively atmosphere and the gentle evening breeze carrying the faint scent of flowers were intoxicating. The charm of the southern water town was like a living ink painting, drawing you in without you even realizing it. The light shimmered on the surface of the river, and for a moment, Leo was lost in the sight. The more vibrant and noisy the world became, the more it could make one feel momentarily detached. It was as if all the surrounding clamor had nothing to do with him. His thoughts drifted back in time. In that instant, the world seemed to fall silent. The bright lights along the riverbanks appeared to extinguish one by one, and the shimmering reflections on the water slowly faded. The rich colors bled away, replaced by a deep, heavy silence. Suddenly, Leo felt a sense of weightlessness, as if he had been unceremoniously dropped into the water. He was enveloped in a lightless darkness, floating, with no sense of up or down, forward or back. The sensation was just like the one he'd had over a year ago, just before his rebirth. It felt like his consciousness was slowly sinking into the dark. After what felt like an eternity, a light appeared. It was a familiar, slender, pale hand reaching out to him, and then it gently took his. The familiar warmth and softness of her touch spread through his palm. Leo snapped back to reality. Before him was still the brightly lit, bustling night scene of the historic town. His girlfriend, having bought the liqueur, had naturally taken his hand. She held up the drink in her other hand and waved it in front of his eyes. "What were you thinking about, you big dummy?" Leo was still slightly dazed. He looked down at his right hand, now held tightly by the girl. That single touch was enough to bring his soul back to his body. He smiled. "Nothing." As he spoke, he gently squeezed her hand. "I was just missing you a little." On the surface, nothing seemed out of the ordinary, but the girl was sharp enough to notice a subtle shift in her boyfriend's mood. "Are you okay?" she asked, concerned. Leo shook his head, still smiling. Claire didn't press. She just handed one of the cups of liqueur to him. She watched as he took a couple of sips through the straw, then tilted her head slightly. "How about," she proposed, "we head back a little early tonight and try out that waterbed?" A truly thoughtful girlfriend always knows how to cheer up her beloved boyfriend. Leo's spirits instantly soared. All complicated thoughts, emotions, and memories were flung to the far corners of his mind. "I was waiting for you to say that." Master Seijin, however, was not in a good mood. His monastic name was Brother Fortune. He had been a monk for over a decade. Before entering the temple, he had studied Taoist fortune-telling and palm reading and had considered himself quite accomplished, a point of pride. Who knew that when he tried to show off his skills to a few kids today, he would hit a wall with 2 of them in a row? He couldn't see a thing. Back at the temple, he sat in his room, deep in thought. Still not ready to give up, he even redrew their palm prints on a piece of paper and continued to study them. The more he looked, the more confused he became. The more he studied, the more baffled he was. He couldn't sleep. Finally, he got up and went to his master, the abbot of the temple, to seek guidance. The moon hung high in the sky, and the courtyard was quiet and serene. The wooden door to the abbot's room was slightly ajar. Only a faint crunching sound could be heard from within. Seejin stood outside the door and began to ramble on to his master inside, telling him about the two young people he had met today, whose faces and palms were impossibly difficult to read. He couldn't see their futures, nor could he even discern their pasts. It was truly baffling. There was no reply from inside the room. Only the faint crunching sound continued. Seejin kept talking. Master, I've been reading palms for so many years, and this is the first time I've ever encountered something so strange. And to see it in two people at once. It just doesn't make sense. That's why I came to ask for your help. From inside. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Seejin finally lost his patience and exploded. Master, stop eating. Put down the instant ramen for a minute. I'm trying to ask you a serious question. At last, the lazy voice of the Orchard of Fate Temple's abbot drifted from the room. What is there to ask about? Your name is Brother Fortune. You're a monk, not some Taoist quack. Why are you always messing around with that half-baked fortune-telling nonsense of yours? If you can't see it, you can't see it. Maybe your prescription has gotten stronger and your eyes are going bad. When we go to the provincial Buddhist conference, I'll take you to see Dr. Liu in the ophthalmology department at the provincial hospital. I hear he's quite good. Seejin's spirits lifted. Dr. Liu? I heard he's an excellent doctor. Thank you, Master. Wait, what am I thanking you for? Master, I'm being serious. Just take a look for me. Something is really wrong. Annoyed at being disturbed, the abbot finally sighed and relented. Fine, fine. Bring it in and let me see. Seejin pushed the door open and entered with his drawings. The courtyard fell silent once more. The faint rustling of paper could be heard from inside the room. A moment later, the abbot let out a soft, low cry. It was their first day in Clear Creek Historic Town. Everyone had a blast, staying out late, exploring the town, before finally returning to the inn. They hadn't felt tired while they were out, but the next day, they all slept until nearly noon. Down in the inn's lobby, they trickled out one by one, stretching and yawning, making plans to grab brunch at the little diner next door. Looking around, they noticed that the power couple hadn't come down yet. They were just wondering if those two had also decided to sleep in when footsteps sounded on the stairs. Looking up, they saw Leo and Claire, washed and dressed, making their way down. Except, as he descended, Leo was clutching his lower back, limping slightly and wincing with every step. He joined the guys, and the trio from room 520, along with Kevin, looked at him with faces full of sympathy and understanding. Tough night, Leo. Dude, you really need to work out more. Clark Sterling kindly handed him a pain relief patch. Put this on. It should help. Leo rolled his eyes. It's not about working out. It was that damn waterbed. It messed with my performance. Despite his words, his hands moved with complete honesty, snatching the patch from Clark without a moment's hesitation. Claire, who had just walked past, glanced at her boyfriend and offered a breezy, cutting remark. Stop making excuses. If you're bad at something, practice more. However, as she walked over to her group of girlfriends, the great Miss Sterling herself stumbled slightly, her hand flying to her own slender waist. Meeting the strange, teasing gazes of the other girls, Claire flushed with a hint of embarrassment before quickly composing herself, her expression returning to one of casual indifference. I tested it out for you guys, she announced. Waterbeds are bad for your back. I don't recommend buying one. The girls all let out a collective "oh" and nodded vigorously. Perfectly reasonable. Perfectly reasonable. Lily Liu and Tessa Yuan immediately rushed to her side. Oh my God, did you pull something? Here, let me rub it for you, Claire. The competition for maid of honor was still going strong. After a good night's sleep and a hearty lunch, everyone's energy was restored. They started planning their activities for the afternoon. Jay Jiang pulled out the travel guide she'd prepared and suggested a pottery studio in town where customers could make their own ceramics. The idea was met with enthusiastic approval. The studio wasn't far from the inn, just a 6 or 7 minute walk. When they entered, they saw that the place was already buzzing with customers, all working under the guidance of the staff, kneading clay, shaping it on the wheel, carving designs, and painting. Everyone seemed to be having a great time. Many were families with children, and the kids were not fussy at all, completely absorbed in playing with the clay. Quinn Liu looked on in amazement. Wow, I've heard of these places but never been to one. It actually looks really fun. Jade adjusted her glasses and commented, it's perfect for family activities. And for couples. Marco watched with envy as a couple nearby worked on a pot together. The guy's hands were right on top of the girl's. The girl was focused on the pot. The guy was focused on copying a feel. If a place like this opened up by our campus, the line of guys trying to impress their dates would stretch around the block. Kevin, Dylan, Leon, and even Clark all nodded in fervent agreement. As the group stood at the entrance chatting, they drew quite a bit of attention. A staff member soon came over to welcome them, and they split up, eagerly following the instructors to try their hand at pottery. Pottery making is one of those activities that can reveal a lot about a person's character. For example, Lily Lou and Clark Sterling were coincidentally paired together. The two of them collaborated well, discussing their design before quickly selecting a style and starting to work the clay, their division of labor clear and orderly. Occasionally, Clark's hand would brush against Lily's fingers. He would blush, flustered, and apologize profusely. She would just laugh and wave it off, telling him it was nothing. Reasonable, the parrot, fluttered by from a nearby perch, his sharp eyes noticing that the girl had quite deliberately moved her fingers to touch Clark's hand. The parrot shook his head. Women, terrifying. Women, terrifying. Jade and Quinn, working together as a pair, were much more relaxed and in sync. Their nimble fingers carved the most beautiful designs, earning them high praise from their instructor. But when that same instructor turned to see what Marco and Dylan had created, he was left speechless. Yet the two Gotham brothers were beaming, desperate for praise. "So what do you think, sir? Is it good enough to go on your customer display wall?" The instructor composed himself and took another look at their abstract creation. The top was long and thin, and to keep it from collapsing, they had stuck two round balls of clay at the base. He drew in a sharp breath. On the display wall? If this thing went on the wall, the shop would be shut down in a heartbeat. As for the other two couples, Molly and Leon were also working together smoothly. They had already managed to make several small pieces, but after painting them, it became clear that every single one was shaped like a date cake. Kevin and Tessa's workstation had a completely different vibe. The great Mr. Zhao had been full of confidence, eager to show off for his girlfriend. "Honey, just watch. Leave it to me." 3 minutes later, he had failed to shape a single pot and had managed to splash mud all over Tessa. She angrily shoved him aside. "Get out of the way. Let me do it." In the end, Kevin was relegated to massaging his girlfriend's shoulders. Finally, there was Leo and Claire, the power couple. Naturally, they worked together with effortless grace. Without any rush, they calmly prepared the clay and began to shape it on the wheel. Claire sat in front. Leo pulled up a small stool and sat right behind her, his arms wrapping around her from either side in a natural, intimate embrace. The point of a pottery date wasn't really about the finished product. It was about the physical closeness and interaction. In that sense, it really was the perfect activity for a couple. Leo's mind began to wander. It wasn't just pottery. DIY craft workshops were a pretty good business idea in his past life. A flicker of inspiration struck him. He might even be able to connect some of his existing resources and launch another major venture. As he was lost in thought, Claire's voice came from in front of him. "Leo, how does shaping the clay feel?" "It's great, really great. So smooth and soft. The clay they use here is really high quality." "That's because you're touching my hand." Miss Sterling's cool voice cut through, mercilessly exposing him. He snapped back to reality. Oh, no wonder. Then, without a hint of shame, he continued to hold his girlfriend's hand. "Well, in that case, I'll just feel it a little longer." Making pottery was a great way to pass the time. Before they knew it, nearly 2 hours had flown by. Most of them had finished their creations. The staff told them that for an extra fee, the pieces could be fired that day and would be ready to pick up as souvenirs by tomorrow. Of course, the masterpiece created by the Gotham brothers had already been destroyed at the strong urging of the staff. The reason given was that it was indecent. As they left the studio, everyone was still buzzing with excitement, talking about finding similar workshops back in East Bay, so they could try it again. It was only 2 or 3 in the afternoon, still early. They remembered Master Sejean's invitation from the day before to visit the orchard of Fate Temple. At the mention of a temple, Claire's eyes lit up. "Let's go. Let's check it out." Ever since their visit to the old stone chapel on Serenity Peak last year, Miss Sterling had developed a fondness for temples. Since this one was recommended by locals, including the innkeeper, it was not to be missed. The innkeeper hadn't been exaggerating. The Orchard of Fate Temple was located on the eastern outskirts of Clear Creek Historic Town. To get there, they had to walk up a path paved with stone slabs. The steps, worn smooth by a century of pilgrims, gleamed under the light. The path was lined with tall, green pines, creating a serene and majestic atmosphere. Pilgrims and tourists walked among them. In the distance, smoke from incense curled up from the temple, mingling with the sound of chanting that drifted toward the sky, carrying with it a sense of solemn dignity. The temple was crowded with visitors praying for blessings, much grander and more bustling than the chapel on Serenity Peak had been. The girls were all excited, calling to each other as they prepared to go inside to offer incense and draw fortune sticks. Claire went with them, leaving the guys behind with nothing to do. They milled about at the start of the path, looking around. Then they noticed several orange trees growing nearby, their branches laden with ripe, fragrant fruit. That was all it took. The guys started slapping each other on the back. "You stay right here. Don't move. I'll go pick a few oranges for you." The air was thick with the playful, unspoken challenge of wanting to be the dad in the joke. They all raced off to pick oranges, afraid that if they were a second too slow, someone else would claim the title. Leo watched them, shaking his head with a laugh. So childish, and so dumb. There were perfectly good ones right here. Leo turned and spotted an orange tree on a nearby slope, its branches heavy with fruit that looked ready to fall. He took a few steps back, then ran forward, using the slope to launch himself high into the air. He reached up and easily plucked 2 oranges from a branch, tossing them triumphantly in his hands. "It's settled," he thought with satisfaction. "I, Leo Hammer Wallace, am everyone's dad." As he was reveling in his victory, he turned and noticed a child standing beside him. A little monk, to be precise. He looked to be about 10 years old, with a round, clean-shaven head and delicate, handsome features. His eyes were clear and bright, and he was now staring up at Leo without blinking. Getting caught red-handed stealing oranges on their territory was a little embarrassing, even for Leo. He thought for a moment, then held out one of the oranges. "Want one? If you take it, we're accomplices. You have to keep my secret." The little monk took the orange and studied Leo carefully, his expression curious. Then he said, "Benefactor, you are fated with the Buddha." Leo scratched his head. What was that supposed to mean? Was this kid trying to recruit him? He immediately waved his hands in a righteous display. "Sorry, I have a girlfriend. I'm not considering becoming a monk in this lifetime." He then turned and looked toward the temple entrance. "But I know a guy named Dylan. He's got potential. I could introduce him to your temple." When he turned back around, he was surprised to find that the little monk had vanished. Leo. Weird. Was this holy place haunted? Inside the orchard of Fate Temple, the girls had just offered incense at the 4-legged bronze cauldron in the main courtyard. Now, they were excitedly heading to a side hall to draw fortune sticks and make wishes. Claire didn't join them. She had already made her wishes at the chapel on Serenity Peak, and at the new year, she had drawn the best possible fortune. Everything was perfect. There was no need to be greedy and ask for more. So, she split from her friends and wandered around the temple on her own. She walked without any particular destination, surprisingly unhindered. Before she knew it, she had stumbled into a quiet courtyard with a monk's quarters. Claire came to her senses. She was just about to leave when she turned and saw a little monk standing at the entrance to the courtyard. He was about 10 years old, with a clean-shaven head and a cute, handsome face. He was also staring at her with wide, clear eyes. "Benefactress, are you lost?" Claire found the little monk so adorable that she felt like teasing him a bit. She smiled. "Yes. Little master, can you show me the way?" It was just a casual joke, but to her surprise, the little monk looked at her seriously and then shook his head. "I cannot see the path from whence you came, nor the path to where you are going. My own cultivation is shallow. I cannot bear such karma. Benefactress, your path is one you must walk yourself." He spoke with the gravity of an old man, which left Claire momentarily stunned. And she couldn't help but laugh. "Little master, you speak wisely. I've been taught a lesson." She was about to say goodbye when the little monk's gaze fell upon her again. He pointed at her wrist and her chest. "Those 2 items. May I have a look?" Claire looked down and saw that he was pointing to the red thread of destiny on her wrist and the platinum ring pendant around her neck. These were her most precious treasures. She was about to politely decline, but when she met the little monk's clear, pure gaze, she felt an inexplicable sense of peace and familiarity. After a moment's thought, Claire nodded, carefully unfastened the thread and the pendant, and handed them to him. The little monk took them and examined them closely in his palm. A faint light flickered in his eyes. He seemed to be talking to himself, murmuring softly, "Mutually causal. Can fate be so determined? How strange. How wonderful." He shook his head slightly, as if he had made a decision. "An encounter is fate. Since I have touched this karma, I shall offer you a small gift, benefactress." Claire was taken aback, a little confused. Before she could speak, she met the little monk's eyes again. His once clear pupils were now as deep as the ocean, filled with a wisdom that seemed to see through the world. Claire felt a tremor run through her, and, without thinking, she nodded. A smile touched the little monk's lips. He placed the pendant and the red thread in his palm, brought his hands together, and slowly closed his eyes, beginning to chant. The chanting was steady and unhurried, yet it carried a profound and mysterious rhythm. In that moment, it was as if the wind had ceased and the leaves had fallen still. The ancient pine tree in the courtyard swayed gently. As the sutra was recited, the little monk's youthful face began to radiate a solemn compassion. The soft chanting seemed to echo grandly in her ears, a whisper that shook the soul, captivating her completely. When Claire finally came to her senses, the chanting had stopped. The little monk opened his hand. The black cord of the platinum ring pendant had been replaced by the red thread of destiny. The two items were now one. At the end of the red thread, where it connected to the pendant, was tied a Buddhist knot of good fortune, symbolizing endless fate, wisdom, and compassion. And the cause and effect were now linked. The little monk smiled faintly. There, much more reasonable. He held out the pendant to Claire. She took it instinctively. She lowered her head and put the necklace back on. The moment the pendant touched her chest and the red cord brushed against her neck, Claire felt an indescribable, mystical energy flow from the necklace, connecting with her. A shiver ran through her body, and her mind was filled with an inexplicable sense of peace. At that very same moment, hundreds of miles to the northwest of Clear Creek Historic Town, the priest was walking through the wilderness, a compass in his hand. Months ago, he had descended from the ruins of the Sanctuary of Awakening on Spirit Springs Mountain, following the needle of the compass. But the secrets of heaven were hard to fathom, and the compass often failed, leaving him unable to advance even an inch. In over 100 days, he had barely traveled 200 miles. Yet the priest's pace remained unhurried. He walked at sunrise and rested at sunset. He never forgot his spiritual practice, whether sitting or lying down. He would occasionally pass through villages and towns, helping those in need and talking with those who were troubled. He was patient and kind, showing no signs of anxiety. He followed the compass steadily, his steps slow but never ceasing. He was calm and composed, certain that one day soon he would reach the person who represented the unexpected variable. Until this moment, for the first time since leaving the mountain, the priest stopped walking. He stared at the compass in his hand, stunned. Also for the first time since leaving the mountain, the needle of the compass was trembling violently, spinning in circles, as if it had completely lost its bearings. The priest's pupils contracted. His usually calm expression wavered for the first time. Destiny is in chaos. Big chapter. Asking for boosts and gifts. It's easiest to just write fluffy, slice-of-life entries. But I set out the main storyline early on, with all its twists and turns, so I will do my best to present the most exciting world I have in my head for everyone. Of course, a happy ending is something I can control, so don't worry. Half an hour later, the group reassembled at the temple entrance. The girls had drawn their fortune sticks and emerged from the side hall, completely satisfied. The guys returned triumphantly from their orange-picking expedition, playfully trying to stuff oranges into each other's arms in a bid to become the dad of the group. The power couple was reunited. Claire looked curiously at the single orange in her boyfriend's hand. How come you only got one? Leo sighed. I had two, but I got caught and had to give one away. The culprit was a little monk with a shaved head who had been spouting some nonsense about being fated with Buddha one second and then vanished, orange and all, the next. It was all a bit strange. Shaking his head, Leo didn't dwell on it. If they were talking strange, a reincarnator was the strangest thing around. He was lucky he hadn't been exorcised as a demon in this holy place, let alone gotten away with 2 of their oranges. Of course, he still had one left. Leo generously offered it to his girlfriend. I saved the last one just for you. If it's not enough, you stay right here, and I'll go pick some more for you. Claire, who was also familiar with the classic short story and its infamous line, felt the corner of her mouth twitch. She gave her boyfriend a look that was half smile, half threat. What's this? Getting tired of being my boyfriend? Want a promotion? You want to call you daddy, is that it? His little trick had been mercilessly exposed. Leo's face didn't betray a hint of shame. Well, it's not out of the question, but it's not convenient to do it here. Wait until we get back to our room tonight. We can close the door and you can call me in secret, hiss. He didn't even finish his sentence before he sucked in a sharp breath. His girlfriend's slender fingers had found his side and given him an unapologetic pinch. Are you trying to start a rebellion? If you're looking for a beating, just say so. After the playful banter, Leo looked at his girlfriend and asked casually, You were in there for a while. Did you draw a fortune stick too? Claire shook her head. No, I already did that at the New Year. I don't need to do it again. I just wandered around. As she spoke, she thought back to her chance encounter with the little monk in the secluded courtyard. She subconsciously touched the pendant at her chest and smiled. It was a worthwhile trip. Since they were at the Orchard of Fate Temple, The group didn't forget to say hello to Master Sijin. He had been leading the other monks in chanting in the front hall and had just gotten a break to meet with them. He greeted them warmly, but couldn't resist taking another long look at Leo and Claire, his eyes wide with concentration. He looked at Leo first, still couldn't see a thing. But when he turned to Claire, he paused, a look of surprise and confusion on his face. How is it that she seems different from yesterday? The others heard this and crowded around, full of curiosity. Master Sijin, did you get your mojo back? Can you see something now? Master Sijin answered honestly, I still can't see clearly. Everyone, they all shot him dirty looks. Are you messing with us? But Sijin paid them no mind, his eyes still fixed on Claire, studying her from head to toe. He murmured to himself, his voice full of doubt, she's really different. It's still unclear, but it seems like there's a new thread of fate. It was all gibberish to them, so they didn't press the issue. It was normal for sages to be a little eccentric. They had seen it before. There was another person back at Berkeley who was just as fond of spouting nonsense, and she was probably working overtime at some evil capitalist company right now. It was a holiday, but the temple didn't close. Master Sijin had only stepped out for a moment to greet them, and had to return to his meditation and chanting. Before he left, however, he mentioned something else to Leo and Claire. He had wanted to ask his master, the abbot, to take a look at the power couple for him. My master is a truly accomplished monk. His understanding of Buddhist teachings is the best in the entire temple. Countless pilgrims from all over the country, and even abroad, come seeking his blessing. They can't even get a single consecrated item from him. Sijin was full of praise for his abbot. Then his expression turned to one of regret. Unfortunately, I have no idea where the old man disappeared to today. I couldn't find him anywhere. Otherwise, if he took a look at you too, he would definitely see things more clearly than I can. The group listened with fascination, feeling a little disappointed for Leo and Claire. But Claire just smiled, unconcerned. It's all right. Encounters depend on fate. Perhaps our time has not yet come. As she spoke, she was reminded of the little monk she had met in the courtyard. An encounter is fate. He had said something similar. Although she still didn't fully understand his words or actions, she had felt an inexplicable sense of comfort and familiarity in his presence. It was a feeling similar to the one she had experienced when she prayed before the Bodhisattva at the chapel on Serenity Peak. It left her in a surprisingly good mood. I wonder if the little monk would be willing to be a ring bearer at our wedding. Bertha Sue thought to herself. After bidding farewell to Master Sijin and leaving the temple, the group returned to the historic town and found a restaurant near the inn for dinner. It was the last night of their 3-day trip. After dinner, they found a small pub, determined to have one last night of fun before they left. The pub in the historic town had its own unique southern charm. A singer sat on a small stage, strumming a guitar and singing a mellow folk song. The house-brewed liqueur had a faint floral scent and was sweet and smooth, making it easy to get a little tipsy without even realizing it. They raised their glasses and toasted to a successful and happy trip, already making plans to go on another one during the next break. After a few rounds, a few of the more spirited members of the group were egged on to go up on stage and sing. Even Clark Sterling, the most shy and reserved of them all, was pushed onto the stage by the others. To everyone's surprise, the distant relative of the Sterling family was a man of many talents. Once he had a guitar in his hands, he got into the zone, and his rendition of a folk song was no worse than the house singers, earning him a round of thunderous applause. The pub owner was so impressed he almost came over to offer Clark a job as a resident singer, saying that salary and benefits were negotiable. From their table, his friends cheered and applauded wildly. Lily Lou, sitting to the side, watched him, her eyes shining with a special light. But she had apparently received a phone call earlier in the evening. Since then, while she laughed and chatted with the others, her mind seemed to be elsewhere. Now, as she looked up at Clark, bathed in the spotlight, completely absorbed in his music, there was a clear admiration in her eyes. But then, as if remembering something, her gaze fell, and the light in her eyes dimmed slightly. They drank and sang in the little pub, their laughter echoing through the night. It was late when they finally paid the bill and stepped outside. Full of good food and good cheer, they walked through the narrow alleys of the historic town. The daytime bustle of tourists was gone, replaced by a quiet serenity. The southern water town, bathed in the moonlight, was like a soft, elegant ink painting. On the way back to the Tranquility Inn, they continued to chat and laugh, the alcohol making them feel a little sentimental about having to leave the next day. For once, Kevin wasn't drunk. After all, when he stayed away from cheap vodka, Mr. Zhao was a force to be reckoned with in any drinking contest. He was only slightly tipsy, but his spirits were higher than usual. He was loudly proclaiming that a 3-day, 2-night trip was not nearly enough. He wanted to extend the vacation plan to 5, 6, 7, or even 8 days. Tessa, standing next to him, playfully slapped him, half amused and half exasperated. Still want to play? Who was it that had a whole work plan set up before we even left, saying you had overtime scheduled for when we got back to Portland? Talk of anything else was fine, but the mention of work sobered Kevin up instantly. All right, can't neglect my duties. Wyatt's R&D department has a new beta version out. I need my guys to get on the testing as soon as we get back. His serious tone made the others laugh. Look at Mr. Zhao. Now that he's a department head, he's got the whole professional vibe down. A man at work really is a different kind of charming. Leon asked curiously, the holiday is 7 days long. Won't your employees complain if you make them work overtime as soon as you get back? Kevin waved his hand dismissively. What's the big deal? Those guys would just be sleeping in and playing video games at home anyway. They might as well come to the office and work, which is also playing video games. When I hired them, they all swore up and down that as long as they were playing games, they wouldn't mind working year-round without a single day off. Leo, standing nearby, offered a piece of well-intentioned advice. Even if they're part-time, you should still pay them for holiday overtime. You can't make them work for free. Kevin puffed out his chest. Don't worry, Leo. I've already thought of that. They wouldn't take cash, so I made a deal with the owner of the land center near campus and put $300 on each of their accounts. They can go there to get their work done, and it's basically the same as them just hanging out and gaming. Leo nodded, satisfied. That's good. Oh, right, add another 50. For late-night snacks when they're pulling all-nighters. A chicken cutlet, an extra egg. Gotta keep their strength up. A look of understanding dawned on Kevin's face. He gave his best friend a thumbs up. That's our Leo. Always thinking big. Leo responded with a humble expression. It's what I do. We can all learn from each other. Everyone else stared at them, speechless. What could they say? They really were best friends. Their hearts were equally black. With the prospect of overtime looming, they had to reluctantly scrap the idea of extending their vacation. But Kevin's spirits quickly rebounded. It's fine. When New Year's comes around, my girl and I will come to East Bay to hang out with you guys again. This trip was short but sweet. The best things come in small packages. Anyway, you have to admit, this trip to Clear Creek was way more interesting than your spring break trip to Spirit Springs Mountain, right? Everyone except Clark exchanged glances. That's not really a fair comparison, but it was definitely a lot safer. That comment made Kevin slap his forehead, a look of regret on his face. Oh, right. Last time you guys went to Spirit Springs Mountain, you ran into a flash flood. This trip was missing a little bit of that excitement. His words earned him a collective eye roll. Yeah, right. If you like that kind of excitement so much, you can have it all to yourself. We're good. We don't need to experience that again. But as they talked, they all marveled at how uneventful the trip had been. It really has been peaceful this time. No drama at all. I was half expecting to run into a massive flood or something in a historic town like this. Last night, when we were on that boat, I was worried it was going to spring a leak and sink. I even brought my portable life vest. Listening to their conversation, Leo and Claire couldn't help but laugh. You guys, not everything has to be a disaster. Have you been watching too many movies? You're starting to think you have some kind of disaster-attracting curse. The group fell silent. Then, they all turned to look at the power couple with knowing expressions. We don't have a disaster-attracting curse, but a certain pair of magnets for trouble. That's another story. That night, back at the Tranquility Inn, they all said their goodnights and went to their separate rooms. Leo and Claire returned to theirs as well. As they were getting ready for bed, they chatted about the conversation they'd had on their walk back. They too were amazed. You know, they weren't wrong. This trip really has been calm. No trouble at all. Looking back at their track record over the past year, it was quite a list. They'd encountered a criminal on a train. Then, just before Christmas, they'd run into him again while strolling through the city. They'd gone to a karaoke lounge and stumbled upon a criminal gang. The second time they went to a karaoke lounge, they'd run into a different group of thugs. They'd gone rollerblading in the park and encountered local gangsters. They'd attended a comic convention and run into some arrogant rich kid. Even at school, there were always people trying to pick fights or start drama over jealousy. Oh, and there was the spring break trip to Spirit Springs Mountain. That time, they had literally gone up against Mother Nature herself. They hadn't realized it until they listed it all out. They really were magnets for trouble with a verifiable track record. In that light, the fact that their trip to Clear Creek Historic Town had been so peaceful was truly remarkable. Leo and Bertha Sue exchanged a glance, a knowing smile spreading across both their faces. Looks like we've matured. Nice work. Smack. A celebratory high five from the trouble magnet couple. As a reward, it was time for another round on the waterbed. Everything in the world is connected by cause and effect. The secrets of heaven are hard to fathom, but there are always a few who can glimpse a fragment of the truth. That night, the young couple at the Tranquility Inn had no idea that their trip had not been entirely smooth sailing. Someone had been quietly working behind the scenes, ensuring that certain troubles that should have come their way were gently steered aside. That same night, at the Orchard of Fate Temple, in the abbot's quarters, Master Sijin sat on a cushion across from his master, rambling on. Master, where did you disappear to today? I practically turned the whole temple upside down looking for you. I wanted you to take a look at those two young people for me. He was cut off by a soft voice from the little monk sitting opposite him. I've already seen them. Sijin paused, his face lighting up with surprise. Then, before he could finish, the little monk shook his head. I cannot see them clearly either. As he spoke, his eyes shimmered with a clarity and wisdom that seemed to see through the world. I cannot see the path from whence they came, nor do I know the path to where they are going. The threads of their karma are a tangled mess. And yet, it is as if they are untouched by karma at all. Such people are rare in this world. Or perhaps, he paused, tilting his head in thought, and murmured softly, they do not belong to this world at all. Sijin was completely lost. Master, what are you talking about? The little monk waved his hand dismissively. It means that the road ahead for those two may not be easy. This Sijin understood. He grew anxious. Then what should we do? I took a liking to those two kids, and my little six specifically told me to look after them. The Qin family never turns its back on a friend in need. Master, you have to help me think of something. The little monk smiled. What makes you think I haven't? Those two are blessed with great fortune and are fated with the Buddha. What I could do, I have already done. He sighed, but there are limits to what one person can do. This time, I do not know how long my intervention will last. Then, as if he had made a decision, the little monk took a deep breath, his expression becoming solemn. Brother Fortune, I need you to do something for me. Seeing his master so serious, Sijin instinctively sat up straight, his own expression mirroring his master's. Yes, master. The abbot of the Orchard of Fate Temple cleared his throat. Go and buy me 2 bags of top ramen. I finished my stash last night, and I'm getting hungry. What are you waiting for? Go. The convenience store is going to close soon. The moon hung high in the sky, illuminating the quiet mountain forest. On the side of the mountain path, the priest sat on the ground, frowning at the compass placed before him. He didn't know why, but it seemed someone had obscured the threads of fate. According to his master's compass, he should have been able to find the person who had disrupted destiny. But now, there was an obstacle in his way. The priest shook his head gently, as if he had made a decision. He picked up the compass, closed his eyes, and began to chant softly. He made no other movements, but as he chanted, a wind seemed to rise, rustling the leaves in the trees. The needle on the compass, which had been spinning wildly, gradually slowed and settled, pointing in a single direction. The priest slowly opened his eyes and looked at the compass. His brow relaxed. Although there was an obstacle preventing him from finding the person directly, he had found a compromise. He could follow the clues left behind by the threads of fate and slowly unravel the mystery. Under the moonlight, the priest stood up once more. He followed the direction of the compass, walking calmly along the mountain path. Originally, the compass had pointed east, a few hundred miles to the East Bay. Now his path had changed. He was heading south, nearly 1,000 miles to Northwood. That was where the threads of fate had first been rewoven, where destiny had first been altered. Daily requests for boosts and gifts. On the 4th day of the fall break, the 3rd and final morning of their trip to Clear Creek Historic Town, their 3-day, 2-night getaway was over. As the morning mist began to dissipate, the group got up, packed their bags, said goodbye to the owner of the Tranquility Inn, and had breakfast at a nearby shop. Then, they left the historic town and headed for the train station. Sitting in the car, watching the scenery of the town speed by, they all felt a little sad to leave. The mist hadn't fully lifted yet, and the town was still veiled in a light haze, the moist air creating the soft, poetic atmosphere of a southern water town, as if seeing them off. The group was captivated by the view. Only Marco Shaw had to break the spell. Whoa, with all this fog, this would be a great place to shoot a monster movie. He was immediately pummeled by the others. What is wrong with you? You're ruining the mood. There are no monsters, no unexpected troubles or dangers. The 3-day trip had been perfectly peaceful. Some had even made unexpected gains. It seemed ordinary, but in reality, It was incredibly precious. Leo happened to notice his girlfriend's wrist was bare. Hey, where's your thread of destiny? The next second, he sucked in a sharp breath. Good heavens, Bertha Sue, you've had a change of heart. When did this happen? Claire tilted her head, pretending to think seriously. Yesterday, I think, at the Orchard of Fate Temple. Leo gasped again. You had a change of heart in a temple. With a monk? He started rolling up his sleeves, looking ready for a fight. All right, tell me which flower monk it was. I'll go have a word with him. Driver, turn around. Before he could get too carried away with his act, his girlfriend, exasperated, tapped him on the head. Are you an idiot? The thread is right here. She reached into her collar and pulled out the pendant hanging around her neck, showing it to him. See? They're together now. Leo leaned in for a closer look and saw that the red thread of destiny had replaced the original black cord of the platinum double-ring pendant. The two were now woven together. At the end of the red thread, where it connected to the pendant, was a beautiful, intricate good luck knot. The combination was even more striking than before. And, although he couldn't be sure if it was just his imagination, now that the thread of destiny and the birthday pendant were intertwined, along with the beautiful Buddhist knot, the necklace seemed to radiate a faint, mystical aura that brought a sense of peace to his mind. They actually look really good together, Leo marveled. He hadn't thought of that before. This was like combining two legendary items to create a mythic one. Half an hour later, they arrived at the Clear Creek train station. Kevin and Tessa were heading back to Portland and had to take a different train from the rest of the group. It was time to say goodbye. There were no tearful farewells. They had already made plans to meet up in East Bay for New Year's in a couple of months. Marco slung an arm around Kevin's shoulder and whispered conspiratorially, Dude, you have no idea. The dinner parties at the single slaughterhouse are getting bigger and bigger. We've added a few more beauties to the guest list. You should see it. A whole row of it girls and campus queens. It's a feast for the eyes. His boastful claims had Kevin's imagination running wild. That sounds awesome. Oh, by the way, doesn't Leo have an employee named Isabella Zhao? Serafina Vance from our Portland office has been talking to her, and apparently my lovely namesake has been saying all sorts of great things about me. I'll have to chat with her when I get to East Bay. Before his daydreams could get any further, Leo, who had overheard, quickly cut him off. All right, we'll talk about it next time. You'd better get to your gate, or you'll miss your train. He gave his friend a gentle push toward the departure gate, nipping that particular danger in the bud. After seeing Kevin and Tessa off, the rest of the group didn't have to wait long in the main hall before it was their time to board the train back to East Bay. 2 hours later, the roar of the engine subsided as the train pulled into East Bay Station. They had arrived safely. Once on the platform, they all said their goodbyes and went their separate ways. The group activity was over, and it was time for everyone to enjoy the rest of their vacation, either on their own or with their significant others. Leo and Claire had planned to head straight back to the L&S house. But as they were waiting for a cab, they remembered that they had promised Chloe Chu and Mia that they would visit them after the break. It was still early. Leo took out his phone and called Chloe. She answered, and her voice lit up when she heard Leo and Claire. They told her they were in the city and wanted to come by and see Mia, asking if it was a convenient time. Chloe immediately said it was. She explained that she was at her shop at the mall, but would be picking Mia up from preschool soon, and then she could treat them to a nice meal. Leo and Claire immediately offered to pick Mia up for her. Chloe trusted them completely. After all, they had saved her daughter's life. She thanked them warmly and gave them the address of the preschool. 20 minutes later, Leo and Claire arrived at their destination. Mia attended the Sunflower Preschool, a private institution in the city. The tuition was expensive, but for good reason. It was located in the city center and had an upscale, elegant feel. It was just about time for school to let out, and parents were starting to arrive in their cars to pick up their children. Luxury cars lined the street. The parents who got out, both men and women, were all well-dressed and carried themselves with an air of sophistication. They were clearly successful professionals. Some even had nannies picking up their kids. Of course, standing among this crowd of parents, Leo and Claire stood out. The young man was handsome and charming, with a relaxed and confident air. The young woman was even more striking, with a cool, noble aura that commanded attention. Many of the other parents couldn't help but steal glances at them, whispering amongst themselves. Were these two also here to pick up a child? They seemed so young. One parent, overcome with curiosity, came over to strike up a conversation. Leo, without missing a beat, nodded and confirmed, Yep, that's right. We're here to pick up our daughter. He added with a laugh, We got married young. What can I say? It was love at first sight. Claire, standing beside him, was both amused and exasperated. She playfully swatted his arm. What are you talking about? But while she seemed to be scolding him for his nonsense, the next second, she turned to the other parent with a warm smile. Please excuse him. My husband is always like this. He's a father, but he's still a kid himself. They were two peas in a pod. If one was going to be ridiculous, the other would be right there with them. They had been dating for less than a year, but they already had a 5-year-old in preschool. The power couple was deep in character, getting a taste of parenthood. And even though they looked young, they both had a mature and poised demeanor that allowed them to blend in seamlessly with the other parents, chatting away without arousing any suspicion. They had everyone completely fooled. Just as they were getting into their roles, the school bell rang. The doors opened, and a flood of children with backpacks poured out. Leo's sharp eyes immediately spotted Mia in her little pink Mickey Mouse backpack. He waved. Hey. Claire followed his gaze and saw the adorable little girl. She smiled and waved too. Mia, over here. Mia heard their calls and looked up curiously. When she saw Leo and Claire, her eyes lit up. Ew. Some of the other kids walking by saw them too and were drawn to the strikingly handsome couple. Mia, who are they? One of them asked, full of wonder. They're so pretty. They look like movie stars. Faced with her friends' curious and envious questions, Mia, for once, had a chance to show off. She lifted her chin, put her hands on her hips, and said with the air of a tiny adult, Aren't they great? They're my new mom and dad. The other kids were stunned. Mom and dad? But you already have a mom. We've seen her pick you up before. Mia waved a dismissive little hand. That was my old mom. She wasn't doing a good job. She wouldn't let me eat chocolate. So I fired her. The other children's eyes went wide with amazement. You can do that. As they were being led away by their own parents, they decided to try it out for themselves. They puffed out their chests and started making demands. Dad, I want to watch an hour of cartoons this afternoon. And I want ice cream. If you don't agree, I'm firing you. The parents? Question mark. When the shock wore off, they grabbed their little rascals by the ear and dragged them to the car. Firing us? Are you looking for a spanking? You want ice cream? Believe me, I'll turn you into ice cream. The unfortunate children wailed and cried all the way home, promising they would never do it again. Meanwhile, the instigator of it all, Mia, was blissfully unaware. She turned to her teacher and introduced Leo and Claire as they walked up. Teacher, this is my little mommy and my little daddy. The teacher? Question mark. Leo and Claire didn't know whether to laugh or cry. They quickly explained, we're friends of Mia's mom. Chloe is busy at her shop, so we're picking Mia up for her. Being a private preschool, they were very serious about security. Even though Mia seemed to know the young couple well, and they both had an air of sophistication that suggested they weren't bad people, the teacher still made a call to Chloe to confirm before she would let Mia go. As they walked out of the preschool, Mia was ecstatic to see her big brother and sister again after several months. She skipped along, chattering away and clinging to Claire. Sister Claire, I missed you so much. You've gotten even prettier since I last saw you. Her words were as sweet as honey, and Claire couldn't help but smile, affectionately ruffling the little girl's hair. At the same time, she was thinking that she had now found her flower girl for the wedding. Her and that little monk. Perfect. Leo, standing nearby, chimed in, Don't just compliment your sister. What about your brother? Mia turned to look at him and nodded sagely. Brother is still a person. Her words were truly as sweet as honey. Leo. Claire burst out laughing. Leo's face darkened. Forget Chloe's shop. Let's find a bookstore and get this little brat some SAT prep books. Mia shrank back, then puffed out her chest defiantly. I'm not scared. I asked my teacher. She said only big high school kids have to do those. I got a long way to go. Leo nodded. True, but you're starting elementary school in a couple of years. Maybe I should buy you a few boxes of AP workbooks. Mia froze. AP workbooks? Leo grinned wickedly. Haven't heard of those, have you? You're still too young to mess with me, little squirt. A shiver ran down Mia's spine. She threw her arms around Claire's legs, her voice trembling. Sister, save me. After picking up Mia, they called Chloe to let her know. She was still at her shop at the mall. It seemed business was booming, and she couldn't get away. She apologized profusely over the phone. Leo and Claire didn't mind. They got the name of the mall and the location of her shop, then hailed a cab. The mall wasn't far from the preschool. Soon, the three of them arrived. They took the escalator up to the 3rd floor, with Mia leading the way. They quickly found Chloe's maternity and baby supply store. This was the first time Leo and Claire had been at Chloe's shop. They had only heard that she was in the baby business and was doing quite well in East Bay. Now, seeing it for themselves, they realized she had been modest. The brand was called Mia's Maternity, named after her daughter. The shop took up 3 storefronts. It was bright and spacious, decorated in a simple yet elegant style with a warm and inviting atmosphere. Even though it was nearly lunchtime, the store was bustling with customers. Most were young mothers with their children or with their husbands and families, carefully browsing the aisles. Staff members were on hand to offer assistance and explanations. As the owner, Chloe was not idle either. She was personally helping customers, her warm and gentle smile inspiring immediate trust. But when she turned to give instructions to an employee, she transformed into a sharp and capable businesswoman. Leo was impressed. Chloe is a real pro at this. Claire smiled and nodded, her eyes full of admiration. Yes, she's amazing. A single mother running a business to this scale. The effort and ability required were beyond what most people could imagine. The future CEO of Sterling Holdings subconsciously began to think about recruitment strategies. Just then, Leo picked up a product from a nearby shelf. It was a simple device, a pump, a clear tube, a transparent cup on one end, and a funnel-shaped hood on the other. He turned it over in his hands, curious. What's this? A mini vacuum cleaner? It's pretty well made. Claire glanced over and saw what her clueless boyfriend was holding. Her mouth twitched. That's a breast pump. Daily request for boosts and gifts. The moment Mia saw her mother, she let out a happy cry and, with her little backpack still on, threw herself into her arms. Mommy! She was so affectionate. You would never guess that just moments before at the preschool, she had righteously declared her mother temporarily fired over a piece of chocolate. Chloe had just finished helping a customer when her daughter barreled into her. She smiled in surprise and stroked her daughter's head. School's out? I'm sorry I was too busy to pick you up today. Mia looked up from her mother's embrace, her eyes wide and innocent. It's okay. Big brother and sister came to get me. All the other kids were so jealous. Chloe, still hugging her daughter, looked up at Claire and smiled gratefully. Thank you both so much. I hope she wasn't too much trouble. Claire smiled back. Not at all. Mia is very well behaved. Besides, we had nothing else to do. As they were talking, Leo walked over. Chloe was about to thank him as well, but when she turned to look at him, her expression shifted to one of surprise. Hey Leo, what's wrong? Are you okay? Your eyes seem to be twitching a little. Leo fought to control the tremor in his pupils and nodded calmly. I'm fine. Just didn't get enough rest, probably. Good grief. That was a close call with social death. This is what happens when a straight guy wanders into a baby store. He should have known better than to touch things he didn't understand. No wonder all the other young mothers who had walked by were giving him strange looks and whispering to each other. He was lucky he hadn't been labeled a pervert. As they were chatting, more customers streamed into the store. The employees were struggling to keep up, and some were still new and inexperienced. As the owner, Chloe had to repeatedly interrupt her conversation with Leo and Claire to go help customers, explain products, and make sales. After being pulled away several times, she finally had a moment to breathe. She returned to them, her face full of apology. I'm so sorry. This branch just opened and the staff isn't fully trained yet, so I have to keep a close eye on things. Leo and Claire both smiled and said they understood. Leo glanced around at the steady stream of customers and remarked, but business is really good, Chloe. A maternity store, if run well, could be a very profitable venture. Whose money was the easiest to make? First, women. Second, children. A maternity store catered to both. Claire's gaze fell on a corner of the store that had been left empty. Why is this space empty? She asked curiously. Chloe followed her gaze and smiled. I'm planning to turn that into a children's play area. When mothers come to shop with their kids, the adults can browse while the kids play with toys. It makes things easier for everyone. I'm also planning to stock some toys there. If the kids have fun playing with them, the parents might buy a couple to take home. She paused, then looked at Leo and Claire and sighed. You have no idea. The profit margin on children's toys these days is even higher than on baby care products. Claire nodded slightly. In her past life, after taking over Sterling Holdings, she had overseen many mall operations, which included maternity and toy stores. She was well aware of the incredible profits in the toy industry. Leo, on the other hand, was lost in thought. He was reminded of the pottery studio they had visited in Clear Creek Historic Town. Combined with what Chloe had just said, he sensed a connection, an opportunity. The evil capitalist, Leo Hammer Wallace. Profit-seeking radar activated. An idea was forming. At lunchtime, despite Chloe's insistence on taking them to a fancy restaurant, Leo and Claire managed to convince her to keep it simple. They found a small restaurant on the second floor of the mall and had a quick meal together. With guests present, Chloe made an exception and allowed Mia to order a chocolate ice cream, but only on the condition that she finished all her vegetables first. Even so, Mia was so excited she was practically bouncing in her seat. She threw her arms around her mother's neck and gushed, "Mommy's the best. I hereby declare that you are once again my good mommy." Chloe, who had been enjoying her daughter's affection, suddenly caught the last part of that sentence. Wait a minute. Once again, she lifted her daughter out of her lap. "Mia Chu, you had better explain yourself." The most dangerous moment in a child's life. When your mother uses your full name. Over lunch, the three adults chatted. Talk turned to work, and Leo and Claire expressed their admiration for how Chloe had managed to build such a successful business all on her own. It couldn't have been easy. Chloe just smiled and waved it off modestly, saying that she had received help from some old friends in the early years. "Otherwise, I never could have done it all by myself." From her words, Leo and Claire could sense that Chloe likely came from a well-to-do family. But she didn't elaborate, so they didn't press the issue. After lunch, they returned to the store. Mia didn't have school in the afternoon, so she stayed and played in the designated kids area, which was temporarily stocked with a few small toys and some modeling clay. She was a good girl and knew not to disturb her mother while she worked, content to play on her own. Leo went over and sat with her, and the two of them, one big and one small, played together happily. Mia would bicker with Leo, but it was clear she was very fond of her big brother. Claire helped Chloe tidy up the shelves, chatting casually. Chloe looked over at the heartwarming scene in the play area and smiled. "It's so nice. Not many people have the patience to play with Mia like that and have so much fun." Claire glanced at her boyfriend, a smile in her eyes. "Don't praise him too much, Chloe. He's a child himself. He and Mia are practically the same age." Although her words were teasing, the happy curve of her lips betrayed her true feelings. Chloe shook her head and said wistfully, "Leo is a really good man. It's not easy to find a guy like him these days. You'd better hold on to him tight, Claire, and don't let him get away." Claire looked at her boyfriend, who was playing with the little girl in the corner. His image filled her vision, and her eyes softened with warmth. "I know. This lifetime, I'll never let him go." Chloe Chu was 34, but years of working with skincare products for her business and her naturally fair complexion made her look 6 or 7 years younger. Standing next to Claire, no one would guess there was more than a decade between them. They looked like sisters. In fact, compared to Claire's cool, refined elegance, Chloe possessed the mature, gentle grace of a young wife, a quality that held a special appeal for a certain type of admirer. For Claire, considering her past life, she and Chloe were practically the same age. Both were strong, capable women in the business world, so they found it easy to talk to each other, clicking immediately. A moment ago, Chloe had been giving Claire well-intentioned advice. Now, it was Claire's turn to ask a curious question. "Chloe, you're a single mom raising Mia and running a business. It must be so hard doing it all alone. Have you ever thought about finding someone?" Chloe laughed. She casually tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture so full of mature, gentle charm that even Claire was a little captivated. "It's not that I haven't thought about it," Chloe said softly, "but it's so hard to find the right person. My husband passed away a long time ago, but meeting him was the greatest blessing of my life. I fought with my family to be with him, and the few happy years we had together. I have no regrets. But to find a second person who is just as dependable and kind, and who would be good to Mia, I don't dare to hope for that kind of luck again." She looked up at Claire and smiled. "So, I'm not forcing it. Things are good now. I'll just take things as they come." Claire nodded in understanding. Then, she caught something in Chloe's words. "You fought with your family?" Chloe paused, seeming to realize her slip. She waved her hand dismissively. "It's nothing. It's all in the past. Not worth mentioning." Since Chloe had said that, Claire, being tactful, didn't press the issue. Just then, a commotion came from the play area. The big kid and the little kid, who had been playing so happily together just moments before, were now bickering over something. Claire and Chloe exchanged a glance and couldn't help but smile. They walked over to the two most important people in their lives. "What's going on here?" Mia turned, her little face puffed up with indignation. "Mommy, big brother cheated to win my snack." Leo declared righteously, "A bet's a bet. It's not cheating when you're playing a game." The two women took in the scene. Chloe's face immediately darkened. "Mia Chu, where did you get that chocolate?" Claire, caught between laughter and exasperation, pinched her boyfriend's ear. "You're supposed to be playing with her. You're a grown man, and you're tricking a little girl out of her chocolate." They really were just two kids. After spending the afternoon at the store, they said their goodbyes to a reluctant Mia and Chloe and left them all. As they walked, Claire casually mentioned the bit of gossip she had learned from Chloe. Leo, rubbing his ear, commented with understanding. "Every family has its problems. Chloe has had it rough." Claire nodded, feeling a sense of empathy. I know. You have to work so hard just to make it look effortless to everyone else. Leo agreed. Exactly. What was that popular song lyric from his past life? We are all just trying our best to live. Couldn't be more true. Except for truck drivers. To hell with truck drivers. It was getting late. They had left reasonable with their dorm mates at the train station to take back to the school, so now it was just the two of them. They weren't in any hurry to get back to the LNS house. An idea occurred to Claire. Hey, aren't Annie Cakes and Wyatt the punching bag in the city? We should call them and get dinner. Leo readily agreed. Sure, I'll call Annie Cakes. Claire nodded and took out her phone. Okay, I'll call Wyatt. Wyatt's phone picked up first. Claire quickly explained that she and Leo were in the city and asked if he was free for dinner. On the other end of the line, the heir to the Way fortune seemed to be busy. He said curtly that he was still in a meeting and probably wouldn't have time today. Claire nodded and didn't push it. All right, you get back to it then. She hung up. Leo's first call to Anna went unanswered. On the second try, it rang several times before Anna picked up, sounding rushed. Leo cleared his throat and launched into his usual teasing tone. Hey, took you long enough to answer. Your sister-in-law and I are in the city, giving you a chance to freeload a meal off us. You're in a meeting? What kind of sweatshop is this? It's the fourth day of the holiday, and you're still working? Does your boss have ink for blood? What an evil capitalist. A righteous condemnation from one evil capitalist to another. Leo was about to continue his virtuous tirade when Anna, on the other end, clearly had no time for it. She quickly said, talk later, and hung up. Hello? Hello? The line was dead. Leo shook his head and put his phone away, turning to Claire. What did Wyatt say? Claire shrugged. He said he's in a meeting and can't make it. Leo raised an eyebrow. Really? Annie Cake said she's in a meeting too. What a coincidence. Downtown East Bay, at Aria Perfumes, a subsidiary of the Way Group. Headquarters conference room. Anna quickly ended the call with her brother and put her phone away. She looked up to meet the gazes of her colleagues and superiors and offered an embarrassed smile before quickly regaining her composure. My apologies. I forgot to silence my phone. Please continue. A company vice president shot her a stern look. This is a serious meeting. Can't you even manage your own phone? Anna, you need to be more careful. Even as an intern, you need to have the right attitude. Mr. Way is right here watching. This is so unprofessional. What will he think of our company? Anna took a deep breath. She turned to the young man sitting at the head of the table, his presence commanding and his expression cool and dignified, and forced a smile, bowing slightly. Mr. Way, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. The heir to the Way fortune looked at her calmly and nodded. Don't let it happen again. Let's continue the meeting. His demeanor was authoritative, a blend of casual indifference and noble grace that had all the employees at the table in awe. That's our Mr. Way, the designated successor of the Way family's third generation. So impressive. Some of the female employees were even starting to swoon, secretly wondering if they could be the Cinderella in a real-life, cool and overbearing CEO romance. With everyone's attention diverted, no one noticed that when the young woman had forced her smile and apologized, her words had been squeezed through clenched teeth, laced with a hint of murderous intent. And no one detected that when the great heir had spoken with such calm authority, his throat had been a little dry, and after he had finished, he had to surreptitiously swallow several times to moisten it. In the conference room, the presentation of the new proposal continued in an orderly fashion. Everyone involved, from department heads to junior employees, was completely focused, not daring to let their attention waver for a second. With the successor of their parent company, the Way Group, present, no one wanted to be caught making a mistake. The only two people whose minds were wandering were the successor himself and a certain young woman named Annie Cakes. Their thoughts drifted uncontrollably back to a scene that had taken place in this very room 3 days ago. It had been the presentation for the previous version of the proposal. The conference room doors had swung open, and the heir to the Way fortune, representing the parent company, had strode in to inspect their work. His gaze, full of authority and cool indifference, swept across the room. The young woman, an intern in the planning department, had risen respectfully with her colleagues and bowed to the big boss. Then she had looked up. Their eyes met. In that instant, the air and the expressions on their faces froze solid. The moment they came to their senses, the great heir had nearly turned and fled the room, and the intern, Annie Cakes, had been ready to chase him down with a 40-meter broadsword. Well, she didn't have a 40-meter broadsword, but that didn't matter. She had instinctively bent her knee, ready to slip off one of her black stiletto heels to use as a projectile weapon. Of course, in the end, they had both managed to restrain themselves. Throughout the subsequent meeting, They had maintained their composure, one cool and authoritative, the other respectful and polite, giving no indication to anyone else that anything was amiss. However, while no one else noticed, the same thought was racing through both their minds, a thought that had been buzzing there since that meeting 3 days ago. No way, man. Could this be any more of a coincidence? Aria Perfume's headquarters conference room. The presentation was still going on, but in the minds of the great Air and Annie Cakes, chaos reigned. This was insane, absolutely insane. They had seen some crazy coincidences before, but nothing this bizarre. When they had been chatting at the LNS house before the holiday, they never would have imagined this. The unreliable employee she had been complaining about was him. The despicable, evil capitalist he had been complaining about was her. And at the time, after hearing each other's grievances, they had actually stood up for each other. One had praised the other's boss, saying he must be a good and dependable person. The other had returned the favor, declaring that the other's employee was exactly the kind of capable person he was looking for. They had even made plans to go beat up her boss together. The boomerang had come back so fast. At that thought, both of them ducked their heads slightly to hide the tremor in their eyes. 3 days ago, when they had left the LNS house, they had casually waved and said, "See you around." Who knew that around would be so soon, and so dramatic? A thought flashed through their minds, and both Wyatt and Anna flinched. They shook their heads vigorously. No, no, no. What fate? This is just a coincidence. A coincidence. Mr. Way. Mr. Way. A vice president at his side called to him softly. Wyatt quickly snapped back to attention. The VP smiled obsequiously. There's just one last proposal. If you could just listen to this one and see if you're satisfied. On the other side of the table, the deputy head of the planning department glared at Anna. Anna, what are you daydreaming about? It's your turn. Anna also snapped out of her thoughts and composed herself. Yes. She took a deep breath, picked up the new proposal from the table, and stood up. After quickly gathering her thoughts, she began to speak, her voice calm and steady. The new perfume line I'm proposing will be based on the theme of the 4 seasons. The specific concept is as follows. Please, offer your feedback. The young intern stood before them, proposal in hand, speaking fluently without notes. She was dressed in a chic pantsuit, her long black hair tied back in a sleek, professional ponytail. With her stunningly beautiful face and confident smile, she exuded a charm that was utterly captivating. At the head of the table, the heir to the way fortune sat slightly turned, his chin resting on his hand. His expression was casual, but he was listening with rapt attention. The new proposal was themed around the 4 seasons, with different scents for spring, summer, autumn, and winter, each with its own unique character. Has Anna's voice always been this pleasant? Why didn't I notice before? It's so clear and melodious, like a babbling brook. And that high ponytail is just so pleasing to the ear. The young woman's lips moved as she continued her presentation. I have no idea what she's saying, but the gloss on her lips is so shiny and alluring, like they're just begging to be. Wyatt suddenly snapped back to reality. What the hell are you thinking, Way? This is a meeting. Be professional. He forced the inappropriate thoughts from his mind and quickly, discreetly glanced around the table to make sure no one had noticed his lapse in attention. Good news. No one seemed to have noticed him. But why were all the other male employees also staring at Anna? And what was with the looks of infatuation and even greed in their eyes? A wave of irritation washed over Wyatt. He tapped his fingers on the table, his voice cool and authoritative. Everyone pay attention. No daydreaming. The employees at the table jolted back to reality and quickly nodded in agreement, not daring to look at their unbelievably beautiful intern with anything other than professional interest. Mr. Way is right. Let's all focus. Focus. Then a vice president sitting next to him chimed in obsequiously. Mr. Way, what do you think of the proposal? Wyatt. He was caught. His eyes began to tremble slightly. The proposal? He had been so engrossed in listening that all he had heard was a melodious voice, and all he had seen were soft, alluring lips. Seeing the great heir hesitate, the other executives at the table quickly tried to read the situation. Is Mr. Way not satisfied? That's fine. We can have the planning department come up with a few more proposals. At the other end of the table, Anna's head shot up. New proposals? Her fists clenched. She instinctively bent down, her hand reaching for her stiletto heel, ready to use it as a weapon. In the corporate world, an intern had no status and no voice. That was true when dealing with department heads and executives, and it was even more true when dealing with the heir to the parent company, the Way Group. The managers and executives of Aria Perfumes were all desperate to curry favor with the great Mr. Wei. Why would they care about the fate of a mere intern? Sensing Mr. Wei's displeasure, they immediately and skillfully began to shift the blame. On one hand, they started making arrangements for the planning department to work overtime for the next few days to come up with 5 to 8 new proposals. On the other hand, they turned to their beautiful intern and began to berate her. What kind of proposal is this? The Four Seasons? It's so cliché. There's no originality, no creativity. How is this supposed to reflect the brand identity and quality of Aria? Go back and redo it, and reflect on your work. If you can't get it right, you can forget about this month's project bonus. His voice grew louder and more passionate as he spoke, spittle flying from his mouth. Anna's eyelid twitched. Wyatt caught the subtle movement and felt a chill run down his spine. This was not going well. He quickly cut in. Wait, who said this proposal is bad? I think it's great. The conference room fell silent. All the executives and employees turned to stare at the young man sitting at the head of the table. Then they saw him slap his hand on the table and declare, "It's decided. We're going with this proposal." The room was silent for another beat. The next second, all the executives' faces changed, and they burst into enthusiastic applause. Excellent. As expected of Mr. Wei, your vision is unparalleled. You know, we were mistaken just now. The Four Seasons theme is a classic for a reason. It's actually quite good. It perfectly aligns with the refined image of Aria. Anna, this is a very thoughtful proposal. Young people these days are so bright. Amazing, huh? Keep up the good work. The department bonus is for outstanding employees like you. Is Anna still an intern? Let's get the paperwork started. She'll be full-time by the end of the month. The sudden shift in tone was enough to give the other employees whiplash. Watching their superiors' expressions change in the blink of an eye, from stern disapproval to warm encouragement, they were filled with awe. Incredible. This is why they're the leaders. It's a skill most people could never learn. The project proposal meeting concluded successfully. The great Mr. Wei had delivered an inspiring speech outlining the strategic direction and work requirements. The employees of Aria Perfumes, from top to bottom, were deeply moved. They all pledged to resolutely implement the spirit of the meeting and, under the strong leadership of Mr. Wei, to work together with renewed vigor to develop the new Four Seasons project and open a new chapter in the company's history. Then the meeting was adjourned. Wyatt waved away the executives who were trying to escort him out, telling them to stay and work out the details of the plan. Then, as if he had just thought of something, he turned to the intern who was gathering her proposal documents. "Missin, walk with me," he said casually. "I have a few more things to say to you about the proposal." His tone was calm, but left no room for argument. Anna's expression was neutral. She nodded and bowed slightly. "Yes, sir." Then, under the envious gazes of the other employees, she picked up her folder and, with elegant, composed steps, followed Mr. Wei out of the conference room. Out in the hallway, the heir and the intern walked one after the other in silence. They reached the elevators, and Wyatt pressed the button. The doors opened, and they stepped inside. The doors slid shut. In a small enclosed space, the air was quiet. They finally turned to face each other. For a moment, neither of them knew what to say. After a long pause, a small smile played on Anna's lips. "Quite a coincidence, huh?" Wyatt chuckled nervously. "Yeah, definitely a coincidence." Anna remembered something. "Was that my sister-in-law who called you earlier?" Wyatt nodded. "You too." Anna nodded back. "My brother. He was calling to ask me to dinner." She paused, then looked at Wyatt. "Don't let them know about this." About the company. Wyatt immediately thought of the private conversations he'd had with his childhood friend and nodded decisively. "Of course. This will be our secret." The words were out of his mouth before he realized how they sounded. A little too intimate. Anna clearly caught it too. Her eyelashes fluttered for a second, but her expression remained unchanged. "And it worked too. In the company, you're the boss, I'm the employee. Everything will be strictly professional. If you have any feedback on the project, give it. I'll do my job." Wyatt let out a sigh of relief. "No problem. It's just work. We'll both be professional. That whole thing about making you revise the proposal a dozen times, that was just part of the job, huh? You get it, right, sister?" Anna nodded brightly. "I get it. So, what we just agreed on, it takes effect after we get out of the elevator." Wyatt was about to agree again. "Sure." He suddenly sensed something was wrong and looked up at Anna. "Wait, what do you mean, after we get out of the elevator?" He saw her reach out and press the button for the first floor. As the elevator began its descent, a dangerous, ominous feeling slowly filled the small space. Wyatt's eyelid twitched. He instinctively took a couple of steps back, only to find his back was already against the wall. What were you doing? Anna placed one hand against the wall, bent her knees slightly, and with two long, slender fingers, deftly slipped off one of her black stiletto heels. It's nothing, she said as she took off the other one. Now, with just her stockinged feet on the floor, she could move more freely, without fear of twisting an ankle. She considered one of the heels in her hand. It would make a decent weapon. She glanced up at the ceiling to confirm that the elevator security camera was still broken. Then she turned to the trembling heir, who was swallowing nervously, and offered a comforting smile. It'll only take half a minute to get to the first floor. Just bear with it. It'll be over before you know it. As the elevator descended, muffled cries of pain and pleas for help could be heard from within the soundproof car. Somebody, help. Where's my benefactor bro? I have a monthly subscription. Back at the LNS house. Leo, who had just returned from the city with his girlfriend, let out a sneeze. Claire came out of the kitchen with a fruit platter. Are you catching a cold? Leo rubbed his nose. No, I think someone was just talking about me. Claire placed the fruit on the coffee table and gave her boyfriend an amused look. You're always causing trouble. The list of people talking smack about you is probably endless. Leo struck a righteous pose. How could you say that? Bertha Sue, do you have some kind of misunderstanding about your boyfriend? I, Leo Wallace, have always acted with a clear conscience. He took an apple from the platter and bit into it, then picked up his phone and logged into AIM to check the work chat for Happy Nest. Oh, the second campus All-Stars competition was about to wrap up. The winner of the East Bay region was, of course, Yvonne Gibberish Girl Moro. The corresponding certificate and a series of rewards, including rare items for various Happy Nest games, will be sent directly to the winner's personal account. Leo nodded with satisfaction. Perfectly reasonable. Had he forgotten something? Did this seamless, reasonable process accidentally screw someone over? Probably not important. Daily request for boosts and gifts. The next day, October 5th. It was still fall break, and the morning was quiet. After waking up and getting ready, the young couple went downstairs and fell into their usual rhythm in the kitchen, a seamless division of labor of breakfast duty. One was in charge of the simple sides and oatmeal. The other was responsible for his signature dish, the only one currently certified as non-lethal, fried eggs. Soon, breakfast was served. Claire finished quickly. Leo was next. He had no choice. After all, unlike his girlfriend, he had to tackle an additional 4 or 5 fried eggs, each one overflowing with love. The slowest was reasonable. The poor, fat-headed parrot was tasked with finishing the dozen or so eggs that remained. If he couldn't finish them, he was responsible for packing them up and delivering them to his good buddy, Mr. Chien. After breakfast, it was time to clear the table and wash the dishes. But today, the mistress of the singles slaughterhouse waved her hand magnanimously, announcing that she would be handling all the chores. The master of the singles slaughterhouse was effusive with praise, showering her with compliments that cost him nothing. The gist of it was that Bertha Sue was the best girlfriend in the entire world, and that a certain Leo Hammer Wallace must have done something truly virtuous in a past life to have found such a gem. The esteemed Bertha Sue gave a reserved nod. You're not wrong, she said. But still, it's nice to hear. I like it. Say some more. And so, amidst the rising tide of her boyfriend's increasingly passionate flattery, she picked up the plates and strolled happily toward the kitchen. With his girlfriend successfully placated, Leo rose from his seat and ambled into the study. He sat down at the desk and opened his laptop, habitually logging into AIM and opening the Happy Nest Company group chat. He skimmed the latest work reports uploaded to the shared files. The plan for deep binding cooperative partnerships with the major universities in the East Bay area was proceeding in an orderly fashion. They were jointly developing educational training systems and building out campus IT infrastructure. It all sounded very high-end and sophisticated, but in layman's terms, it was a cooperative model that allowed Happy Nest to conquer one university after another, steadily absorbing their entire student bodies into the website's loyal user base. As long as those partnerships held, their student users would be almost impossible for any competitor to poach. It was a truly impenetrable fortress. As for the stability of those partnerships, Leo wasn't worried in the slightest. With Dr. Finch at Berkeley leading the charge and vouching for them, it wasn't just the East Bay. Most universities across the country, with the exception of Harvard and Yale, would be willing to follow suit and open their doors to Happy Nest. To put it bluntly, in the world of American higher education, the old man was a shining golden seal of approval. The ultimate banner to rally under. Keep him happy, and you could pretty much do whatever you wanted. Speaking of which, Leo remembered it had been a while since he'd played 5 in a row with the old man during the break. Their cross-generational friendship needed regular maintenance. He made a decision. Next time he played with the old man, he'd go easy on him, let him have a little fun. This time, he'd only steal 3 of his pieces at most. One less than last time. Having made his decision, Leo Hammer, Wallace felt himself enveloped in the glow of his own moral conscience. He was practically radiating positive energy. He closed the Happy Nest group chat and opened the work emails from Wyatt Way and Kevin Zhao. The development of Heavenly Tactics was progressing smoothly. The technical and testing departments were working together with increasing skill and synergy. On one hand, this was because Yvonne Moreau was back at the East Bay headquarters, handling organizational planning and central coordination, keeping everything in perfect order. On the other hand, it was because the new employee Kevin had recently hired for the Portland office, Serafina Vance, had proven to be surprisingly capable. Originally, Kevin and his team of college friends were all just amateurs, a motley crew with no real experience in a professional work environment. Yet now, the Portland office was handling the testing work with remarkable efficiency. That new, proactive female employee had played a huge role. However, Serafina Vance? Leo stroked his chin. That name sounds a little familiar. Where have I heard it before? He didn't dwell on it, casually pushing the question to the back of his mind for now. After replying to Wyatt and Kevin, Leo started mulling over another matter. His experience with pottery at Clear Creek Historitown during the trip, combined with what Chloe Chu had said about children's toys at her maternity shop yesterday, had sparked the beginning of an idea. Figurines. Right now, Battle Through the Heavens was a massive hit across the web. The browser game was also thriving, a picture of booming success. And since Leo, under his alias Mr. Zhou, had just acquired the development rights for physical merchandise from Scrollverse, creating a line of collectible figurines was the logical next step. But for Leo, that wasn't enough. For one thing, while the Battle Through the Heavens IP was hot, its audience was limited to fans of the novel and game. He wanted to break into the children's toy market that Chloe Chu had mentioned. For another, figurines were just one small category of toys and lacked a certain degree of interactive playability. He hoped to borrow from a model he'd seen at the pottery studio in Clear Creek, combining that DIY concept with his figurine idea. But these were all just preliminary thoughts and hopes. He hadn't yet figured out the perfect way to merge them. Leo wasn't in a rush. He decided to have the art department at Mako Entertainment put the new project on the agenda and start the initial preparations. Just because he, the boss, didn't have a clear vision, yet didn't mean he couldn't have his employees draw up 5 or 8 different drafts for him to review and choose from. And if the drafts weren't suitable, then they just have to revise them. Sure, the requirements might be a bit complex and demanding, like a client asking a designer to create something in multicolored black, but wasn't that just setting high standards for his beloved subordinates? Besides, what was wrong with multicolored black? His Claire could do it effortlessly. Everyone else just needed to live up to the boss's wife standard. His mind made up, Leo picked up his phone and called his number 1, heaven-sent workhorse to deliver the good news about her new assignment. Ring, ring, ring. It took a while for the call to connect. When it did, a different, pleasant female voice came through. Hello, senior. Leo recognized the voice. Gibberish girl. Oh no, Yvonne, he corrected himself. Oh, why did you answer? Did I dial the wrong number? He glanced at his phone screen. Nope, the contact name was correct. Isabella, chosen one, thinks my name is Kevin Days Zhao. Leo was puzzled. Where's your senior, Isabella? Before Yvonne Moreau could answer, a cry of utter despair echoed from the other end of the line. No, my fertilizer. My Emperor-grade fertilizer. Wah! Then he heard Yvonne take a few steps away from the source of the wailing before explaining seriously. I think your senior might be a little bit broken. The Campus All-Stars competition. Prizes are distributed to the winner's personal Happy Nest account and any linked game accounts. Non-transferable. Non-giftable. The moment she learned the truth, Isabella Zhao felt her entire world collapse. But she couldn't blame anyone else. The rules were stated clearly and explicitly. It was her own fault that the moment she saw the prize list, her eyes had latched onto the words Emperor-grade fertilizer, and her brain had shut down to everything else. She hadn't bothered to read the fine print. And so, she was reaping what she sowed. She had worked so hard, putting in more effort as a supporter than the actual contestants. Now, at the very end, she discovered that none of the rewards had anything to do with her. It's fine. It's just one bag of Emperor-grade fertilizer. At first, Isabella tried to be strong, her voice trembling as she gave herself pep talk. It's just a game item. It's no big deal. Her stoicism lasted for exactly 3 seconds. Then she broke. And by the time Leo's call came through, the great it girl had been wailing in despair at the office all morning. It was enough to make even Leo feel a little bad for her. Maybe you should let her stop working for now. It's still the fall break. She should go home and rest. Let her cool down. The words had barely left his mouth when Isabella snatched the phone from Yvonne's hand. It's fine, boss, she declared, her voice still thick with emotion. Whatever new work or new tasks you have, just give them to me. She sounded like she was sniffling, trying to pull herself together through sheer force of will. I will channel my grief into strength. I'll use work to distract myself from the pain. Leo nodded in understanding and offered a thoughtful suggestion. In that case, I just happen to have a new project on hand. You can start by drawing up a few versions of the initial draft for me. Isabella sniffled and clenched her fist. I'll make 10 versions. Leo, ever so considerate, reminded her. If that's not enough to distract you from the pain, you can always make a few more. On the other end, Isabella nodded vigorously. Okay. Her voice was thick with grateful tears. Thank you, boss. Then she hung up. Back in the study of the LNS house, Leo held his phone and shook his head with a chuckle. He thought for a moment, then sent a message to Owen Wu, the technical director at Happy Nest. I'll send you a Happy Nest account name in a bit. Make up some reason and put a few bags of Emperor-grade fertilizer in her inventory. She was, after all, the #1 star employee of his Mako Entertainment. She deserved to be taken care of. Besides, a girl this gullible and easy to fool would be hard to replace if he broke her completely. When you're working, time flies. Before he knew it, over an hour had passed. Having finished his tasks, Leo stood up from his desk, stretched, and rolled his neck and arms to work out the kinks. Then he walked out of the study. He glanced around, but didn't see his girlfriend in the living room. Hearing a noise from the yard, he looked outside. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, he saw her. Claire was in the yard, hanging laundry. The stunningly beautiful girl had her hair casually tied back. She was wearing his loose white button-down shirt, the hem falling to her thighs, the sleeves rolled up to reveal a pair of flawless, jade-like arms. She was focused on hanging clothes on the line. In the bright morning light, her face and figure were illuminated, creating a scene of infinite beauty. She looked ethereal, like something out of a painting. Watching her, Leo's heart swelled with a warmth and happiness he couldn't contain. The corners of his mouth turned up in an uncontrollable smile. The miniature, cartoon version of himself that had been quiet for some time couldn't help but pop up again, hands on his hips, smug and triumphant. No way, no way. Don't tell me there are people out there who don't have a girlfriend as virtuous and beautiful as mine. How unfortunate for them. He picked up the camera from a nearby table and through the glass, pressed the shutter. Click. He captured the image of the girl under the clothesline, her profile, as she hung the laundry. In the yard, Claire heard the faint sound from the house and instinctively turned to look. Leo lowered the camera and waved to his girlfriend. Claire waved back, gesturing for him to come out. Leo walked out into the front yard with the camera. Claire was just hanging the last piece of clothing. She clapped her hands together and smiled at him. Finished with work? Leo smiled and nodded, naturally wrapping an arm around his girlfriend's waist. The faint, clean scent of soap on her was comforting and pleasant. Yeah. Came out and saw Beauty doing chores, so I took a picture of you. He handed her the camera for her inspection. Claire looked down at the screen. In the photo, taken through the living room window, a girl in an oversized white boyfriend shirt was hanging a piece of clothing on the line. The pale, golden morning light created a soft, hazy glow around her. Her profile was indistinct in the halo of light, yet it exuded a natural, beautiful, and otherworldly quality. Not bad, Claire offered a satisfied critique. Leo made a decision. I'll upload this to our couple's account later. The Reasonable Couple Happy Nest account hadn't been updated in a while. The comment section was full of people demanding more content. Even the members of the anti-Northwood High cult at Berkeley, while lamenting, "Man, I'm such a masochist," also admitted that they felt out of sorts if they didn't get their daily dose of PDA from the lethal and savage couple. They were addicted. Shipping a couple was just that good. Speaking of the couple's account, another thought occurred to Leo. He still didn't know if the shadowy figures from D.C. who had sent that warning were acting deliberately or if it was just a random occurrence. If it was the former, they might have already tracked down the Reasonable Couple account. So they couldn't stand seeing him and his Claire being all lovey-dovey. He'd post some more pictures. Maybe he could piss them off to death. With that, he made a decision. When he uploaded the photo later, the caption would be just 2 words, "My wife." In the afternoon, Claire felt drowsy after lunch and decided to go upstairs for a nap. Leo had intended to join her, but he received an unexpected call from Dr. Finch, the former president of Berkeley. He was summoned to the small garden in the faculty housing complex. He let Claire know he was going out to play a few games of chess to keep an old man company, a charitable visit to a lonely retiree. It turned out he really was just there to play chess. When Leo arrived at the gazebo door, Alistair Finch already had the board and pieces set up. Seeing him, he wasted no time and simply waved him over. Sit. A few rounds. Despite using the formal term for a game of Go, they were in fact playing 5 in a row. One old, one young, they battled across the 19 by 19 grid. As the game progressed, the number of pieces on the board both increased and decreased. The ones that disappeared were hidden under their butts. When one game ended, they would gather the pieces back into their bowls, only to find that each was still half empty. Finally, they would each pull out a handful of black and white stones from beneath them and place them back in the bowls, looking at each other without the slightest blush. You're fast, kid. Right back at you, old man. It wasn't until the final game was over and they were packing up the pieces again that Dr. Finch finally glanced at Leo and said casually, "Get ready. Next weekend, your senior has cleared his schedule. He wants to meet you." The news sent a jolt of excitement through Leo. He'd come back with good news. Leo had long been curious and expectant about this senior mentor Dr. Finch was going to introduce him to. After all, the last time he was here, he caught a glimpse of Berkeley's current president, Dr. Chun Wang-Dao, hiding behind some bushes. If the president of a state-funded, top-tier university wasn't the person Dr. Finch was referring to, then the identity of the senior was even more profound and mysterious. Besides, the busier the person was and the harder it was to schedule a meeting, the higher their status was likely to be. Fortunately, he now had a firm date. According to Dr. Finch, it will be next weekend, either Saturday or Sunday, with the exact time to be confirmed. Leo, of course, had no objections and readily agreed. "No problem. My schedule is clear. I'll be ready whenever." "Sir, does my senior have any hobbies? Should I bring a fruit basket or some flowers when I visit, to be polite?" He was already strategizing. If this senior also liked to play chess, he would have to go all out, throwing the game with such skill and finesse that the man would have a wonderfully pleasant victory. The trick of hiding pieces was reserved for the old man. He'd have to restrain himself with the senior. Dr. Finch just rolled his eyes. "Does he look like he needs your fruit basket? With all that consideration, why don't you ever think to bring your old man something to eat?" Leo retorted, "Who says I haven't? I brought you plenty of things before." He shouldn't have said anything. That just made Dr. Finch even angrier. "You have a nerve to bring that up." It was either date cakes, date cake mooncakes, date stuff with walnuts, or date paste rolls. What? Does your family own a date cake factory? And the one time you brought something different, some little cookies. Damn things nearly broke my teeth. After a huffy lecture, the old man still gave Leo some advice. His status and perspective are beyond the reach of your petty flattery. If you're truly sincere, you should spend some time thinking, prepare a draft in your head, and figure out how you're going to present happiness to him when you meet. Remember what I told you last time. It's in a businessman's nature to chase profit, but don't let profit be your only focus. When you see him, don't start by thinking about what you can get from your senior. First, think carefully about what you and happiness can do for the East Bay, for the public, for society. This was genuine, unreserved guidance, each word a pearl of wisdom. Leo was thoroughly convinced, nodding humbly as he took the lesson to heart. After bidding farewell to the old man, Leo left the gazebo and started walking toward the east gate to catch a cab back to the LNS house. As he walked along the tree-lined campus path, he began to ponder the plan Dr. Finch had laid out for him. He didn't have many ideas at first. He took out his phone and called David Chung. As soon as the call connected and he heard David's hello, Leo beat him to the punch, declaring with righteous conviction, "From now on, happiness is going to take a path that benefits the nation and its people. Stop thinking only about making money. First, let's think about what contributions we can make to society and the public." On the other end of the line, David Chung was silent. He almost thought he was hearing things. "Damn it, in this entire company, aren't you the one who's most interested in making money? Almost every major project and strategic decision over the past 6 months was orchestrated by you. Garden Grab's in-game items, the browser game platform, that battle through the heavens game Mako Entertainment developed. You're the one who's been coaxing players into spending fortunes. Just yesterday, some female Garden Grab player called customer service, begging to buy an Emperor-grade fertilizer item, saying price was no object. You did all the dirty work, and now you're telling me you've washed your hands of it and turned over a new leaf? Leo felt a little awkward himself. Previously, both he and Happy Nest had been extremely tight on funds. The company's rapid development required a massive amount of capital, which was why he'd been devising all sorts of projects to make money. But things were different now. Happy Nest development was gradually getting on track and stabilizing. For the time being, they no longer had to worry about finances. Next, it was indeed time to pay more attention to the company's brand and social image. There was a huge difference between a profitable company and a great company. Happy Nest now had the potential and foundation to become the latter. They had to strive for it. David Chung agreed with Leo's sentiment, but also astutely picked up on the key information in his words. You said you're being introduced to a big shot next weekend? Who is it? What's their level? Leo laughed. Guess. Intrigued, David immediately rattled off a long list of names, then racked his brain for other possibilities. Finally, unable to think of anyone else, he asked with eager curiosity, So, did I guess right? Leo answered honestly, Hard to say. I don't know who I'm meeting yet either. David Chung, you really are a piece of percent at $% carat. The profanity was automatically censored. The meeting with the mysterious senior was next weekend, still a week away. There were 2 days left of fall break. By delegating the problem to David Chung and letting him brainstorm with the rest of the Happy Nest team, Leo felt a great deal of pressure lift. He could now occasionally ponder the issue and mentally draft some ideas. The rest of his energy was devoted to comfortably enjoying the last 2 days of the break with his girlfriend. On October 5th, the second to last day of the break, the young couple went to the nearby community market to buy groceries. Unlike their first visit, Claire was like a completely different person. She knew the market prices of all the fruits, vegetables, meats, and eggs at every stall. She haggled with the vendors with a calm and confident ease. Leo, standing beside her, was stunned. He asked, full of curiosity and wonder. Bertha Sue just nodded slightly, her expression reserved. I was just teasing you last time. Something as simple as buying groceries is a piece of cake. The truth was, she had spent the previous evening cramming, studying all the relevant market price data. She had even roped in her capable assistant at Sterling Holdings, C. Chun, to help her practice, running through haggling scenarios over video call. The esteemed Ms. Chun, who had been handpicked by the future CEO and was now rapidly climbing the corporate ladder, was completely bewildered throughout the entire process. She had no idea what her boss was up to, but she was deeply impressed. Watching his girlfriend's decisive and formidable performance as she bargained with the vendors, Leo was also deeply impressed. Was his girlfriend really turning into a virtuous homemaker? Was her Hell's Kitchen persona about to be retired? The young couple's shopping trip to the community market was a triumph. They emerged, laden with the spoils of their haggling war, chests puffed out with pride. The future CEO of Sterling Holdings, having done her homework the day before, displayed a level of bargaining prowess that even surpassed Leo's own. The main reason was that when a drop-dead, gorgeous woman stood in front of a stall holding a shopping basket, speaking with clear logic and an encyclopedic knowledge of vegetable prices, the vendors were simply mesmerized. In the end, many of the groceries were practically given away. The most absurd instance was at one stall where she only intended to buy a bunch of green onions, and a vendor threw in 3 heads of garlic for free. Leo watched in awe. At this rate, Ms. Bertha Sue could find a whole new path to wealth and fame. It was true. Beautiful women got preferential treatment everywhere. The only downside was that she got so addicted to haggling that they ended up buying way too much food. They had enough to last them for 5 days. What they couldn't eat would have to be stored in the fridge. On the way home, all 4 of their hands were full. It was a bit of a struggle. The couple hadn't driven to the market. Although the Maybach had become their designated ride, they rarely used it around campus. Driving it to and from school was too ostentatious, and finding a parking spot for a Maybach near the market would have been a nightmare. It was just inconvenient. They were planning to walk to the bus stop when they happened to pass a newly opened electric scooter shop right next to the market. In the last year or two, the electric scooter industry had started to take off in the country. Especially after the Beijing Olympics this year, the government's promotion of clean energy had caused the scooter business to boom. The shop the couple was passing had 20 or 30 scooters of various styles and colors lined up out front. Claire stopped in her tracks. She glanced at the shop's entrance, a flicker of interest in her eyes. She turned to Leo. Want to take a look? Leo raised his eyebrows in surprise. You want to buy an electric scooter? This was new. They say beauty goes with a fine car. A campus queen and future CEO like Claire seemed naturally paired with a luxury vehicle like the Maybach. A campus queen CEO riding an electric scooter? The image was a bit beyond the average person's imagination. But Claire was intrigued. She took Leo's hand and pulled him toward the shop. Come on, let's look. This small scooter shop on the outskirts of the city had a surprising variety of models and brands. There were major names like Sunra, Ima, and Yedea, as well as local provincial brands. The prices range from $1,200 to $2,000, with some high-end models going for over $3,000. For the average student, it was a significant expense. Of course, for the lethal and savage couple, money wasn't an issue. Claire eagerly pulled Leo around the store, her excitement growing. The more she thought about it, the more it made sense. Compared to the conspicuousness of driving the Maybach around campus every day, a small electric scooter will be a much more low-key, convenient, and practical mode of transportation. More importantly, Claire had never ridden an electric scooter before. The novelty made it even more appealing. She turned to her boyfriend. "Let's buy one." Leo smiled. "All right, you're the boss. Which one do you want?" He had been thinking about it too. Having a scooter would definitely make grocery shopping more convenient. And since there weren't many students riding them on the old campus, the regulations weren't very strict. They could just register it and get a permit. It would save them the trouble of taking a cab or waiting for the bus to get from the LNS house to school. With her boyfriend's support, Claire didn't hesitate. She raised her arm, her slender finger pointing decisively at a scooter. "That one." Leo followed her gaze. He saw an IMA electric scooter with a distinctly feminine style. Compared to the other models, its lines were smoother, more delicate, and compact. It had a small basket on the front. The entirely pink frame gave it a unique charm. "Wait a minute. Pink." A question mark popped up over Leo's head. He turned to his girlfriend. "Isn't that a little girly?" Bertha Sue didn't know how to ride a scooter yet, which meant that after they bought it, he would be the primary driver. A grown man riding a small pink scooter around campus. The image was a little unsettling, but Claire loved it and refused to consider any other color or style. She looked at her boyfriend with pleading eyes. Leo shook his head firmly. "No way. It's not appropriate for a man to ride that." "It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what I say." Claire thought for a moment, then leaned in close to her boyfriend's ear and whispered something. The next second, a rush of heat went to Leo's nose, and he almost had to fight off a nosebleed. He waved his hand decisively once more. But then again. And so, under his girlfriend's flower-like smile, Mr. Leo Hammer Wallace, CEO of the single slaughterhouse, generously paid in full for one small, pink IMA scooter. They named her Amy. With their new ride, the couple loaded up their bags of groceries from the market and set off on their new scooter, cruising all the way back to the LNS house. The morning sun was warm. A gentle breeze brushed against their faces. Sitting on the back of the scooter, Claire held a bag of groceries in one hand and wrapped the other around her boyfriend's waist, feeling completely content. This feels even more like building a life together, she thought. Having a scooter really was more convenient. In just a few minutes, they were back at the LNS house. As they drove into the front yard, the Maybach was basking comfortably in the sun, content and satisfied. "May, up right arrow." The next moment, it saw its master and mistress return. May was overjoyed, but a second later, something felt wrong. What was that thing its master and mistress were sitting on? Claire happily dismounted from the back of the scooter and turned to her dazed Maybach, which was parked nearby. "This is Amy," she announced, "a new member of the family. I expect you two to get along." "Hey, May, degree to degree, coming." The entire car was in shock. "Oh no, I'm going to be replaced. My status as the wedding lead car is in jeopardy." A trip to the market to buy groceries. And they came back with a new luxury vehicle. The young couple had ended up having a big spending day during their fall break after all. Claire was full of enthusiasm and interest in the newest member of the single slaughterhouse. Right after lunch, she was already pulling Leo outside, eager to take their new little scooter for another spin. Reasonable also flapped out, curious to check out his new companion. When he saw the small, delicate, all-pink Amy, he let out a gasp of admiration. "Whoa, a chick!" Then he lost interest. A parrot of his status, a tough and mighty bird, naturally had to ride on the hood of the Maybach to look suitably impressive. So he turned and flew over to his old buddy, landing on the hood with a plop. He offered some comfort to the dejected May. It's okay. I got you back. May was deeply moved. May, true friendship shows in times of trouble. The master and mistress of the single slaughterhouse didn't have time to worry about the feelings of their other two household members. At his girlfriend's urging, Leo rode the pink scooter around the neighborhood with Claire on the back. They found an empty lot behind the complex. Claire, not content with just being a passenger, suggested she try driving it herself. Leo was a little worried. "You've never ridden one before. Be careful." As she sat on the seat and gripped the handlebars, Claire herself was cautious. She gently twisted the right handle. The little scooter slowly started to move forward. At first, it was wobbly, and Leo stayed close, ready to steady her, terrified his wife would lose her balance and fall. It wasn't that he was worried about a serious accident, but even a scrape or a few lost hairs. Forget his father-in-law, the chairman of Sterling Holdings. If his own parents back in Northwood found out, they'd probably drive all the way to the East Bay to personally skin him alive. Their daughter-in-law was precious and delicate, not to be harmed. Their son was tough and thick-skinned. As long as he was alive, it was fine. The official double standard of the Wallace household. However, perhaps it was a natural affinity for the pink scooter, or perhaps it was because she had experience riding a bicycle, but Claire quickly got the hang of it. After a wobbly start, within 5 minutes, she was confidently circling the empty lot. Leo stood on the sidelines, applauding and cheering for his girlfriend. Nice! Bertha Sue, you've got a real talent for this. Bertha Sue's talent didn't stop there. Once she had mastered the scooter, the girl got a mischievous spark in her eye and started twisting the throttle, trying to accelerate. A moment later, the empty lot was a cloud of dust and roaring noise. The little pink scooter zipped back and forth across the lot like a bolt of lightning, moving at a speed far beyond what a normal scooter should be capable of. As Leo watched, dumbfounded, she executed a cool, stylish drift, braking to a perfect stop right in front of him. Sitting on Amy's seat, Claire tossed her hair, still buzzing with excitement, and invited her boyfriend, "Get on. I'll take you for a spin." Leo instinctively took 2 steps back, shaking his head vigorously. "No, thanks. I just remembered I have something to do. Kevin's mom is having a 4th baby." Claire pouted. "Leo, you don't love me anymore." She deployed her go-to emotional manipulation tactic. Leo, equally adept, countered without missing a beat. "It's just not convenient today. I'll love you again tomorrow." This eventually devolved into the couple's familiar routine of bargaining and bribery. "Get on the scooter." "No, this isn't the bus to the kindergarten. Let me drive you for a little while, and you can pick what I wear to bed tonight." "Well, all right, but I get to pick for 3 nights straight." "1 night. 2 nights. Deal. Get on, and let me drive you for half an hour." He didn't last half an hour. Sitting on the back of Bertha Sue's ride, the little scooter felt like a roller coaster, a thrilling and near-death experience. After 20 minutes, Leo was about to pass out. He stumbled off the scooter, waving his hands frantically. "And never mind 2 nights. 1 night is fine. 1 night is fine." It proved that there was a reason Bertha Sue and Quinn, the god of driving, Lou, were roommates. A pair of driving aces. One was a master of all vehicles. The other was a scooter specialist. Their skills were undeniable, but any passenger was guaranteed to be scared half to death. But it had to be said, having the pink scooter was convenient. That evening, the couple took the scooter out again to time the trip from the LNS house to campus. This time, Leo was driving with Claire on the back. They drove steadily to the east gate of the school. It only took 20 minutes, which was faster and easier than taking the bus. It was the second to last day of fall break, and many Berkeley students were already returning to campus. The evening sky was filled with a beautiful sunset. The little pink scooter arriving at the east gate was particularly eye-catching. First glance was at the scooter. "Holy crap, it's pink." Second glance was at the driver, Leo. "Holy crap, it's Leo." And then they started to laugh. The great Leo, a grown man, having a girly moment and riding a pink scooter? Some students who knew him were about to shout a joke. But then, their third glance landed on the back of the scooter at the beautiful, radiant, and utterly divine Claire Sterling. She had her arms wrapped unabashedly around her boyfriend's waist, a gentle smile on her face, looking completely content. The passing Berkeley students. Suddenly, they couldn't laugh anymore. What was wrong with the scooter? So what if it was pink? The guy had the Berkeley campus goddess sitting on the back of his ride. He could be driving a tractor, and he'd still look cool. The next day, October 6th, it was the last day of fall break. In the morning at the LNS house, the mistress of the house was on the living room sofa, looking over project files from Sterling Holdings. The master of the house was in the study, brainstorming his next project after Heavenly Tactics. At Mako Entertainment, Isabella Zhao had already started working on the first drafts for the Battle Through the Heavens figurines. The heaven-sent workhorse had channeled her grief into strength, working overtime for the past 2 days, and had already churned out 4 different concepts. But Leo wasn't satisfied with any of them. Some were too conventional. Others just didn't feel right for reasons he couldn't pinpoint. Leo began to wonder if his standards were too high. Even as someone reborn, he couldn't expect to come up with a perfect plan every single time. With no new ideas coming, Leo got up from his desk to take a break. He walked into the living room and saw his girlfriend on the sofa, talking on the phone. Seeing him, Claire waved him over and whispered, "I'm talking to Mom. Dad doesn't seem to be in a very good mood lately." Leo was surprised. His old man in a bad mood? That was rare. What happened? Did he get skunked on his last few fishing trips? He sat down next to her as Claire put the phone on speaker. His mother's voice came through. It's about that order your dad's mold factory took from the international toy company a while back. There's been a problem. Leo remembered. His father had bragged about it on the phone not long ago. The cooperation with a foreign toy company was for a batch of figurines, with an initial order of 50,000 units. I thought that was a good thing, Leo said, confused. What happened? His mother sighed. It was supposed to be, but when your dad's factory was making the models according to their specifications, a new employee in the workshop entered the parameters wrong. The figurines were supposed to have a nose, eyes, hair, and a round head. What came out was a blockheaded figure. No hair, no facial features, just a completely bald, square head. Susan's voice held a hint of reprimand. Honestly, for such an important project, how could you let a new employee handle it? His father's frustrated sigh came through. The blueprints required computer software, and that kid was the only one in the factory who knew how to use it. Who knew this would happen? By the time we found out, it was too late. 20,000 effective blockheads were already made. All that excitement for nothing, and now the factory has to eat the cost, tens of thousands of dollars. On this end, Claire, having understood the situation, offered some comfort. It's okay, Dad, it's not your fault. Accidents happen. I'll think of something, try to get some other projects for the factory. Though her words couldn't solve the immediate problem, the sentiment was enough to move Robert Wallace. Ah, Claire, you're so good to us. You don't have to worry. Just hearing you say that makes me happy. I'll just have to chalk this one up to bad luck. Before he could finish, Leo, sitting next to Claire, suddenly slapped his thigh. Brilliant! The sudden outburst startled Claire and his parents on the phone. Before they could ask what was wrong, Leo's face lit up with inspiration. Dad, this screw-up is absolutely brilliant. Robert Wallace. Haven't seen him for 2 months. Has my son decided to rebel? The fist of fatherly love clenched instantly. As someone who had been reborn, his greatest advantage was having more than a decade of foresight and vision compared to his contemporaries. He never lacked for inspiration, creative ideas, or successful case studies to emulate. The only problem was that the information was too vast and disorganized, making it difficult to retrieve specific memories from his mental library. Just moments ago, he had been agonizing over how to create the perfect plan for his new figurine project. Now, sitting on the sofa, listening to his parents' predicament, a spark ignited in his mind. He had found the perfect solution in the vast archives of his past life. He couldn't help but exclaim his delight. When he came back to his senses, the other end of the phone was silent. Beside him, his girlfriend was giving him a look one might reserve for a dead man. Holding the phone and making a questioning gesture that clearly meant, have you finally decided you've lived long enough, Leo Hammer? Then, his mother Susan's suspicious voice came through the phone. Leo, your father's factory is in trouble. Why do you sound so happy about it? This was followed by the sound of Robert Wallace cracking his knuckles. You little brat, I'll give you 3 seconds to give your old man a reasonable explanation. The threatening aura was palpable even through the phone. It was clear that one unsatisfactory word would result in a personal visit from Northwood and a demonstration of fatherly love via clenched fists. Leo snapped to attention. No, he said, laughing nervously. That's not it at all. Dad, do I look like that kind of person? I just had an idea. It's perfect. It can solve this whole mess with the defective products. He scrambled to do damage control. But his explanation only made his parents more skeptical. Solve it? What kind of idea do you have? Beside him, Claire's eyes widened with surprise and curiosity. She looked him up and down, clearly not believing him either. She probably thought he was just making things up to avoid a beating. But Leo smiled confidently. Easy. Have Dad sell that batch of defective products to me. I'll buy them all, at the regular price. The line went quiet again for a second. Then he heard the sounds of his parents getting up. Honey, pack a bag. We're buying tickets to the East Bay. The little brat hasn't had a beating in 3 days, and he's already talking nonsense to his own parents. They don't let you bring butcher knives on the train, so pack our rolling pin. It took a great deal of effort to convince his parents that he wasn't joking. Leo had to provide 2 examples as proof. First, how he helped his mother start the Sweet Return Bakery during the summer after graduation, and second, how he had started a company and made a successful game while at university. His parents knew about his skills with the bakery, but this was the first they'd heard about him starting a business in college. They were surprised and delighted. His mother, while happy about her son's success, was also worried. Well, don't just focus on business. Have you been keeping up with your studies? Let me tell you, making money is secondary. You can't neglect your education. As Susan launched into her usual lecture, Robert snatched the phone. "Son, selling bread and making games is a different world from my mole factory. Are you sure about this?" Leo laughed. "Don't worry, Dad. Leave it to me. This might even end up making your factory another big profit." Robert was still uneasy. "Don't just agree to this to bail me out, kid. If this deal goes south, that's my problem. I don't need my son to carry my burdens. You worked hard for your money. Don't use it to patch up my holes." "Oh, wait a minute. You're not that conscientious. You must really have a plan. All right, it's all yours. I'll have the product sent over. Remember to pay on delivery." The first half of his speech was a touching moment of father-son bonding. By the second half, he had talked himself into a state of enlightened clarity and sealed the deal on the spot. Leo didn't even have a chance to persuade him. By the time he processed it, his father had already shed his burden and was cheerfully exclaiming, "All right, that's settled. I'll call my guys at the factory and have them start packing for shipment. Gotta go, bye." Click. The phone went dead. Not a second of hesitation. Leo sat on the sofa, phone in hand, completely stunned. Beside him, Claire stifled a laugh. "Dad is pretty easygoing, isn't he? You didn't even have to convince him." Leo's mouth twitched. "Yeah, he's my father, all right. No stranger to taking advantage." It was a time-honored Wallace family tradition for father and son to seize any opportunity to get one over on the other. Back when they each had their own secret stashes of cash, they not only had to hide it from Susan, but also from each other, to prevent theft and blackmail. This father-son rivalry had been a custom since his childhood. After the joking, Claire grew curious again. "Do you really have a plan for those defective toys?" Leo gave her a mysterious smile. "Of course. And who said they were defective?" Inspiration had struck. That evening, Leo charged back into the study, opened a new Word document on his laptop, and began furiously typing out his new business plan. To others, the block-headed figures produced by the factory's error might be defective junk. But only he, a reborn individual, knew the truth. In his previous life, a company called Funko Pop had launched a line of block-headed figurines 2 years from now, in 2010. With their distinctive, oversized, square heads and small bodies, they became instantly recognizable. Within 2 years, they were selling over 10 million units annually, with sales in the hundreds of millions of dollars, becoming a world-class collectible toy brand. And now, at the end of 2008, thanks to his father's factory's fortuitous mistake, he, the reborn son, had been given a chance to snatch that winning ticket ahead of schedule. And that wasn't even the best part. Because this batch of block-headed figures from his father's factory hadn't been sculpted with any facial features or designs, they were essentially blank slates, basic models. This reminded him of his experience at the pottery studio in Clear Creek. DIY, customization, allowing users to unleash their creativity. This model had also been a massive success for another top-tier collectible brand in his previous life, the Fluid Art Bears. They were also blank models, with just a basic cartoon bear shape and no facial details. But they allowed customers to use fluid paints to create their own unique designs. This method was even easier to get into than pottery. It was suitable for all ages, perfect for couples. He could partner with Chloe Chu's maternity store, integrating this fluid art blockhead activity into the children's toy section, allowing for parent-child interactive experiences, where adults and children could create something together. They wouldn't just be making a toy. They would be creating beautiful family memories. A two-pronged approach, multiple collaborations, connecting all available resources. All his requirements were perfectly met. He could already feel piles of money sprouting wings and flying toward him. What's more, while the popularity of these block-headed figures in the domestic market was yet to be seen, their appeal to an international audience had already been proven in his past life. In other words, if this business took off, he wouldn't just be making money domestically. He could start exporting, turning his local brand into an international one, not only making a profit but also bringing glory to the country. Reasonable. It was all so perfectly reasonable. In the study, Leo grinned at the business plan on his screen, his smile stretching from ear to ear. The mistress of the singles slaughterhouse peeked in from the doorway. Seeing her boyfriend's idiotic grin, she pursed her lips and remarked, "Leo, you know when you smile like that, you look like a scheming merchant." October 7th, a Monday. Fall break was over. It was time to go back to class. He had spent the entire previous night in the study at the LNS house, feverishly working on his plan, researching a fusion of Funko Pop and Fluid Art Bear business models. The more he worked, the more energized he became. If Bertha Sue hadn't appeared in a set of pajamas that are redacted for decency's sake and successfully lured him back upstairs, he probably would have pulled an all-nighter. Oh, And of course, once he got upstairs, he didn't exactly go straight to sleep. But the next morning in class, Leo's mind was still consumed by his new product plan. Every time he thought about it, he'd grin. He was still grinning like an idiot by noon, when he was about to get on the shuttle to the new campus. Claire, who had walked with him to the bus stop, couldn't help but laugh and give him a light smack. "You little money grubber. What brilliant idea have you come up with that's made you so happy?" In high spirits, Leo threw his arms around her in public and planted a kiss on her cheek. "A brilliant idea that's going to make us a fortune. Just you wait. You'll be a little rich lady soon enough." Claire pouted slightly. "I'm already a big rich lady. Why am I getting a downgrade with you?" Despite her words, she was clearly pleased. No matter her personality or status, a girl couldn't help but feel happy seeing her boyfriend so confident and full of ambition. She leaned in and gave him a kiss on the cheek as encouragement. "Well then, go get him. Remember to eat lunch when you get to the new campus. Don't just think about work, take care of yourself." Leo readily agreed. The young couple's affectionate exchange drew groans from the members of room 520 and other advertising students waiting for the shuttle. "Please stop with the PDA. We haven't had lunch yet either." After seeing her boyfriend off on the bus, Claire went to meet her roommates from room 205 for lunch at the dining hall. As the girls chatted, Quinn Lou brought it up. "Hey, Claire, what's with your Leo today? I saw him on the stairs after class, and he didn't even react when I said hi. He was just grinning like an idiot." Claire couldn't help but smile. "It's nothing. He bought some little toys and has been messing around with them for the past couple of days." Little toys. The three girls of room 205 looked up in unison, their eyes shining with a mischievous, R-rated curiosity. "What do you mean by that? Give us the details." Claire replied casually, "I didn't really ask. I think they're square-headed or something." Square-headed. The word sent a jolt through the three girls, whose minds had already gone to the gutter. They gasped. "They make those things with square heads. Are you two getting that wild?" Jay Jiang adjusted her black-framed glasses, her eyes gleaming with a scientific thirst for knowledge. "Is that a new model? Think you could spare one for me to test?" Claire finally caught on and was exasperated by her three perverted roommates. "What are you thinking? I meant actual, normal toys." The three perverts nodded in unison, their faces full of knowing understanding. Right, we get it. Normal. That's what we'll tell everyone." That afternoon, at the new campus, Leo was in the campus convenience store with his roommates, getting some instant noodles and hot dogs for a quick lunch. He received a text from his girlfriend. It was short and to the point, a formal complaint. "Leo, my roommates are perverts. I feel so out of place with them." She didn't explain why. Leo didn't understand, but that didn't stop him from fulfilling his duties as an exemplary boyfriend. "It's okay. You're a way bigger pervert than they are." He put his phone away, satisfied. He didn't care what kind of punishment awaited him when he got back to the old campus that evening. It was worth it. What was the point of being in a relationship if you couldn't be a little cheeky? Just then, Leon, who was also on his phone, looked up at Leo. "Hey, 3, I just heard from Molly that you got some little toys. What are they for?" The date cake guy and the novel girl were attached at the hip, and when they weren't together, they were texting 24/7. They had no secrets. At that, Dylan and Marco perked up. "Little toys? What kind? What are they made of, rubber or resin? Are they skin-friendly? Do they work well? You got any extras for your bros to test out?" Leo thought for a moment. "I think it's PVC plastic." "Plastic?" The two Gothamites froze, their imaginations running wild. They shuddered and shook their heads. "Never mind, we'll pass." Wouldn't plastic be pokey? That afternoon, in advertising design class, the teacher let the students choose their own theme for a product design project. Leo took the opportunity to start sketching out the basic design of his block-headed figurine. The teacher walked down from the podium to check on the student's work. When he passed by Leo's desk, he saw the design on his paper and his eyes lit up. "Whoa, Leo, this design is interesting. Can I take a closer look?" Before he could finish, Leo slapped his hand over the drawing. "No, trade secret." The teacher, ? After class, Leo didn't take the shuttle back to the old campus with his roommates. He hailed a cab and went straight to the Mako Entertainment headquarters on Kongping Road. 20 minutes later, he paid the fare and went upstairs. He went inside the office. Wyatt wasn't in, and Isabella seemed to be holed up in her office drawing. Leo gathered the art team in the main area. He took out the sketches he'd made in class and gave them their assignment. Using this template, your first task is to create block-headed versions of all the main characters from the Battle Through the Heavens IP. The task was simple enough. Designing cute, chibi-style figures with clear guidelines was a piece of cake for professionals. The art team happily agreed, puffing out their chests with confidence. Don't worry, boss. There are only about a dozen important characters. With your requirements, we can get you at least 2 full drafts in a week. Seriously, it's nothing. Give us more work, otherwise we'll feel bad taking our salaries. They were full of bravado, forgetting the #1 rule of the workplace. Never tell your boss you want more work, especially when your boss is Leo Hammer. Leo smiled. No rush. First, do the battle through the heavens characters. After that, there are plenty of others that we don't need to buy the rights for. Romance of the Three Kingdoms, Journey to the West. We can do all the main characters, the generals, and all the demons and gods from the 81 trials. That should be a few hundred characters right there. If that's not enough, I'll think of something else for you. The entire art team. Instant regret. Damn it. Why do we have to open our big mouths? Why? Just then, the door to the next office burst open. The head of the art department, the great Isabella Zhao, strode out, full of fighting spirit and her face flushed with excitement. It's fine. Boss, give us as much work as you want. I got it covered. Mako Entertainment's #1 workhorse had arrived, full of energy. But her enthusiasm seemed even higher than usual. It was as if she was literally burning with a passion for work. Noticing Leo's confusion, Yvonne Moreau came over and whispered, I think she won the lottery yesterday. Happiness Garden Grab drew her as the lucky player of the year. They gave her 3 whole bags of Emperor-grade fertilizer. Ordinary people are like flowers, needing sunlight and rain to grow. Some people, however, only need a few small bags of in-game fertilizer. Let me see. What did the boss just assign? Ooh, this little blockhead is cute. We're using this template to design all the key characters from Battle Through the Heavens. And we're only supposed to do 2 drafts in a week. That's not nearly enough. You're underestimating us. 3. We have to do 3. If you can't finish, I'll work overtime to do it. Hey, what can I say? I'm your team lead, ha 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 hick. Watching Isabella energetically coordinate with the art team, Leo once again had the thought, maybe he should just start paying her in garden grab fertilizer. It seemed to be more effective than cash. Just then, Yvonne Moreau approached him. Senior, I've pretty much wrapped up the coordination work for Heavenly Tactics. All that's left is for the R&D department and Wyatt's team to implement another round of improvements for the new version. It seems like I don't have much to do. Do you have any new tasks for me? Leo looked at Yvonne's earnest face. The campus beauty's eyes were unblinking, shining with a desire for self-improvement. This one was on another level. She didn't need sunlight, rain, or even fertilizer. She was purely driven by a desire to work hard. A moment of idleness was unbearable for her. Leo nodded without hesitation. Don't worry, there's a new task. Just wait a little bit. There's a more important job coming up for you. Once the block-headed figurine project officially launched, design, production, retail, partnerships, coordinating with various online and offline parties, he would definitely need a talent for coordination like Gibberish Girl. After leaving Mako Entertainment, Leo took a detour to the Happy Nest headquarters, which was just a couple of blocks away. It was a short 10-minute walk. When he arrived at the small building, he saw that proper security guards had been posted at the entrance over the fall break. There was even a new access control system. Employees had to swipe their cards to get in. On one hand, the data and information at Happy Nest headquarters were becoming increasingly vast and important and couldn't be compromised. On the other hand, with the company's recent expansion and new, in-depth collaborations in the education sector with major East Bay universities and even government officials, there had been a steady stream of visiting university leaders and even higher-ups from the city's education bureau. Enhanced security was a necessity. Leo didn't have an ID card yet, but fortunately, the guards were familiar faces. The 2 men on duty were from Shunshire security team. They had even helped out during the clash with Aegis Construction's thugs back in the Fenwood Old District. Leo couldn't remember their names, but he thought of them as the Miller brothers. When they saw Leo, their faces lit up. They greeted him with a mix of respect and familiarity and quickly moved to let him in. Leo smiled and thanked them. Tough work. The 2 veterans waved their hands. Not at all. Much easier than our time in the service. A little too easy, actually. Not enough excitement. It was much more thrilling helping you out last time, boss, punishing those villains. As they spoke, they clenched their fists, a look of nostalgia on their faces. Boss, if you have any more jobs like that, don't forget about us. Just then, their captain, Shun Shur, walked over, his face stern. What are you 2 talking about? We're company security now. Our primary duty is to protect the company's order and property. Stop thinking about fighting all day. Stand straight. Any more slacking off, and you'll be running laps around the block with a weighted pack. The moment their old captain appeared, the 2 guards snapped to attention like mice seeing a cat. Shinshur then turned to Leo and nodded apologetically. My apologies, boss. They're not well disciplined. But the next moment, when his men weren't looking, the veteran master sergeant leaned in and whispered to Leo, but then again, if you have any hard jobs, just give me a call. Shinshur, promised to be there in a flash. Leo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It seemed this one couldn't stand being idle either. But he suspected the captain was going to be disappointed. After all, he wasn't some kind of trouble magnet. It's not like he was getting into fights all the time. He went inside and up to the second floor. Through the glass wall of the CEO's office, he saw David Chung buried under a mountain of paperwork. Leo decided not to go in just yet. He chatted and joked with some of the senior department heads he knew. A few new employees, men and women, passed by, looking at him with the nervous excitement of fans meeting their idol. One of them, a young woman holding a piece of paper, worked up the courage to approach him. Mr. Wallace, could you give me your autograph? I'm a huge fan. Leo smiled and nodded, taking the paper and pen and scrawling two large, flamboyant characters on it. The cursive was so stylized it was hard to read, but looked less like Leo Wallace and more like Mr. Show. Other new employees were lining up, eager for an autograph, but they were shooed away by Hannah Ling, who had been promoted to a mid-level manager. Break it up, break it up. Get back to work, what does this look like? The star agent of the company had developed a certain authority. The new employees quickly dispersed. Leo watched with a smile. Ms. Ling, you've got quite the presence now. You're starting to look like a real boss. He had barely finished the compliment when Hannah magically produced a stack of papers and shoved them into his arms. Less talk, more signing. A lot of my old classmates are fans of yours too. After signing for a while, Hannah left, satisfied with her haul. Leo then turned and walked into the CEO's office. As he opened the door, David Chung was just finishing his work. Leo said without batting an eye, "Well, what a coincidence. I just got here and you're already done." David's mouth twitched. "Don't think I didn't see you slacking off out there. Don't make me beat you up." The two co-founders sat down on the sofa and discussed the company's recent operations and progress. Everything was going smoothly. David brought up two other matters. First, the building on Wanning Road was getting too small. A high-ranking city official who had visited recently had noticed the issue and had proactively offered to help Happy Nest find a new location in the city's central business district with preferential policies and low rent. This was good news. The second matter was neither good nor bad. The date for the Nexus Gala had been set. As the CEO and CSO of Happy Nest, both he and Leo were invited and couldn't refuse. Carlson's office just confirmed the time, David said. It's this Friday evening. A trip to Happy Nest headquarters and a chat with David Chung made Leo realize just how packed his week was. This weekend was the introduction from Dr. Finch, a meeting with a mysterious senior whose identity was still unknown. And now, this Friday, there was the mandatory Nexus Gala. He had to give face to Carl Carlson, the current chairman of Nexus. The man had personally sent a gold-leafed invitation, called David's cell phone directly, and specifically requested the attendance of both the CEO and CSO of Happy Nest. He was even remarkably considerate. He knew that one of Happy Nest's twin stars, the esteemed chief strategy officer, was a man of many aliases who disliked public appearances. Carlson had said in advance that they could skip the press and camera crews. He would set up a private room where the CSO's identity could remain discreet. In addition to this thoughtful gesture, Carlson had also included a thinly veiled threat, delivered with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Tell that Joe guy." "Wait, what'd Joe tell that Wallace kid? He took our $800,000 consulting fee and 5% equity. He gave us a development plan for our new platform. And then, when Nexus went to sign contracts with celebrities, experts, and online influencers during the fall break, over a third of the prime targets had already been signed by someone else. Do you think I can't guess which bastard pulled a stunt like that? If he dares not to show up to this gala, do you think I, Carl Carlson, will lose my temper or not?" Leo had initially suggested to David, "Why don't we take a guess? I'll sit this one out. You can go and see for me." David replied, "And what if Carlson does lose his temper?" Leo thought for a moment. "Then next spring, I'll burn some extra paper money for you at your grave." And thus, the CEO's office once again became the stage for the classic drama of a furious CEO chasing his CSO around the room. In the end, they decided he would attend. Besides these two major events, there were plenty of other things to handle this week. On Tuesday evening, the package from Northwood arrived. In 2008, the domestic shipping industry was already quite developed, with major carriers just starting to offer next-day delivery. It was more expensive, but Robert Wallace was so anxious about his factory's figurine business that he couldn't wait. The day after his son said he had a solution, He had packed up the products and sent them via express mail. This shipment contained 5 boxes of block-headed figures, with 60 in each box, for a total of 300. Isabella Zhao and the art team at Mako Entertainment had already started designing character models. Leo planned to send 3 boxes to the company for them to practice on. The remaining 2 boxes, 120 figures, could be used to test the fluid art bear model from his past life. He would buy some liquid paints, try it out, and see how it looked. After sending the package, Robert called Leo again, still worried. "Kid, are you sure this is going to work? Don't be stubborn. Don't waste so much money buying these defective toys. It's not easy for you to make money with your own business." "It's actually pretty easy." Leo didn't say that, of course. He just laughed and reassured him. "I have a plan. I guarantee you'll be fine." "Don't worry, Dad." Before he could finish, the line went dead. "All right then. I'm hanging up. Long distance is expensive, bye." Leo listened to the dial tone, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. His old man had a bit of a conscience, but not much. But then again, maybe it was a sign that his father truly trusted his son's abilities. The 5 boxes of block-headed figures were delivered to the LNS house. On Tuesday evening, Leo and Claire went back to pick them up. Working together, they carried the boxes inside and lined them up on the living room floor. They opened one. Neat rows of white, basic model, block-headed figures met their eyes. Claire picked one up and examined it, a slight smile on her face. "It's actually kind of cute. Even without any sculpted features, the square-headed design had a goofy, endearing quality." They had stopped by an art supply store on the way back and bought some paints and brushes. Leo picked up a brush and gestured to his girlfriend. "Want to try painting one?" Claire was intrigued. "Paint what?" They decided they would each paint the other. So the couple sat down at the dining table with paints, brushes, and 2 block-headed figures. They sat facing each other, studying their models before starting to work. Unlike Marco's abstract artistic talents, the master and mistress of a single slaughterhouse both had some drawing skills. In a short time, they had both finished their creations. They placed them on the table to compare. Claire's version of Leo Hammer was endearingly goofy. The simple black eyes somehow radiated an aura of a classic straight man. Leo's version of Bertha, Sue, was also lifelike. He had painted a pure ponytail on the back of the head, and the face on the blocky head was delicate and cute, with a slightly haughty, cool expression that was softened by the figure's inherent cuteness. The couple looked at each other's work, both quite satisfied. Claire nodded and praised her boyfriend. "Not bad." Leo waved his hand. "Not done yet." He picked up his brush and, with a few quick strokes, added 2 details to the chest of his Bertha Sue figure. Claire saw it and playfully slapped him. "You little pervert. Are you trying to die?" Then she leaned in for a closer look and huffed, dissatisfied. "And they're too small." Leo replied with righteous gravity. "Bertha Sue, you need to face reality. We're going for realism here." Claire shot him a sidelong glance. "Realism, huh?" She picked up her brush and, with 2 swift strokes on the Leo Hammer figure, a perfect, cute version of a crayon Shinchan elephant appeared. Now, it was Leo's turn to stare. Hey, that's going too far. I'm not that small." He snatched the figure back and furiously went to work with his brush. The little elephant became a big elephant. Claire pouted, not to be outdone. She took her figure back and added 2 more strokes, creating a magnificent bust. Then the couple held up their respective figures, showing them off to each other in a defiant display. They glared at each other for a moment, then burst out laughing. They laughed so hard they had to clutch their stomachs, almost unable to breathe. This is what happens when a couple has been together for a long time. Once just holding hands or a small kiss would make their hearts race. Now, they were like an old married couple, effortlessly and joyfully engaging in this kind of risque banter. When they finally placed the 2 figures back on the table side by side, they both felt a little embarrassed. Block-headed figures number 001 and number 002. They were now a little too R-rated. Leo sighed. "I was originally going to make these the classic, flagship couples edition for the Lethal and Savage brand." Claire made a decision. "Let's make them a limited, out-of-print edition instead. One of kind. For our private collection." Leo took another look at the abstract results of their modifications and nodded decisively. Reasonable. With their newly acquired pink scooter, traveling between the university and the LNS house had become much more convenient. After signing for the delivery at the house and personally creating the very first, and instantly retired, couple's edition of the Mako Entertainment block-headed figurines, the couple hopped back on their pink ride and returned to campus. They each brought a batch of the blank slate figures back to their respective dorms, giving them to their roommates in room 205 and room 520 to try their hands at decorating. When Leo got back to room 520, Marco, Dylan, and Leon were all at their computers, deep in a gaming session. It was the Room 520 Gaming Trio's daily battle through the Heavens dungeon crawl. Seeing Leo return, his roommates greeted him without looking up from their screens. Yo, 3, you're back. Not staying at the single slaughterhouse tonight. Finished your battle with Bertha, Sue so quickly? That's not good, 3. A man's got to have stamina. A barrage of nonsensical commentary. Leo rolled his eyes, not bothering to respond. He held up the bag of block-headed figures. I went to pick up a package. Got some toys, one for each of you. That one word made the 3 roommates instantly drop their mice and keyboards and whirl around. What? For real? Let me see. As expected of our 3. So generous. Perfect timing, I haven't rewarded myself yet today. They eagerly crowded around him. And then they saw the contents of the bag. They all froze. What the hell are these? Leo took a few of the block-headed figures out of the bag and placed them on his desk. Toys. Figurines. Marco and Dylan's faces fell. Oh, normal toys. Leon, however, picked one up curiously and examined it. It's actually kind of cute. 3. How many of these did you get? If you have extras, I'll buy a couple to give my Molly. Leo smiled. No need to pay. I have plenty. They're free. I'm planning to use these to design a line of collectible toys. You guys can each take a few and try making your own custom designs if you're interested. That piqued their interest again. Hey, that actually sounds pretty cool. It's like painting, right? Using the figure as a canvas. Dylan, the dorm's undisputed top artist, felt that his moment had come. He puffed out his chest. Don't you worry, 3. I'll design something awesome for you. The coolest one ever. Leo nodded enthusiastically. All right, if your design is good, we'll mass produce it. You'll get a cut of the profits. Oh, and if you're interested, you could join a loving and supportive company called Mako Entertainment. Have a chance to contribute to the company for free. Leon was also excited. That sounds great. I have a design idea too. 3. You can mass produce mine too. It wasn't hard to guess what the date cake guy's design would be. Leo chuckled and nodded. Sure, you make it first. If it's good, you can both be the company's official designers. In a matter of minutes, he had secured 2 of his roommates as freelance employees for Mako Entertainment. Marco's spirits lifted. I have an idea too. Hey, 3, you come to the right person. A company like yours can't afford to miss out on a design talent like me. Leo paused and looked at him. Well, we're not exactly that short-staffed. Marco's artistic skills. Forget working for free. They have to seriously consider whether to accept him, even if he paid them. Dylan and Leon nodded vigorously. They were all too familiar with their roommates' artistic abilities. Marco was dejected. You guys just don't understand art. Whatever, a genius is always lonely. I'm not going to waste my breath on you. I'm going to get my package. He huffed and stomped out of the room. Watching him go, Leo asked Dylan and Leon, what did he buy? Leon smiled. A suit. For the Founders Ball, tomorrow. He didn't have a good outfit last year, so he spent days online picking one out this time. Spent a few $100 on it. Got something really sharp. Says he's going to blow everyone away. That jogged Leo's memory. Oh, it's time for the Founders Ball again. Berkeley's anniversary celebration was always held on the 3rd day after the fall break. The Humanities Department had a long-standing tradition of holding a formal ball organized by the Arts Department. There were no strict requirements for attendance. Most were humanities students, but some from other departments were also invited. At last year's ball, Clara made a stunning entrance in an ice blue evening gown that outshone everyone else. The older students in the Humanities Department still talked about it. This year, however, the Lethal and Savage couple had no intention of going to such lengths. In Bertha Sue's own concise words, I already got the man I wanted. But Cheryl Chun, the head of the Arts Department, had invited them, so they decided to go for a bit. Not just Leo and Claire, but everyone from Room 205 and Room 520 came along. When they arrived at the venue, the hall was already buzzing with people. Most were freshmen from the Humanities Department, attending this kind of event for the first time, their eyes wide with excitement and curiosity. From Room 520, Dylan was once again in a suit. It was still a bit loose, but it couldn't dampen his confidence. I'm definitely asking a freshman girl to dance today. I don't even have to talk. I'll conquer her with my dance moves. Leon was looking around. Hey, where's 2? Speak of the devil. Here I am. With a confident shout, Marco made his grand entrance. Today, he was in a sharp blue evening suit. The few $100s he'd spent online had paid off. It fit him much better than last year's, and he looked quite handsome. Even Cheryl Chun, who was passing by, did a double take. Whoa, you clean up nice, kid. Looking sharp. Just then, Claire came over to find Leo. Unlike last year, she wasn't dressed to the nines. She wore a simple white floral dress with delicate dark heels, yet it still effortlessly accentuated her perfect figure. Her elegant and noble aura easily overshadowed the freshman girls in their elaborate gowns. Seeing Marco's outfit, Claire was also pleasantly surprised and offered a rare compliment. "You do look very handsome." Then she turned and smiled, looping her arm through her boyfriend's. "Almost half as handsome as my Leo." Leo, without batting an eye, replied modestly, "Oh, not at all. I think Marco here has at least 60% of my charm today." The couple's back-and-forth banter made Leon and Dylan roll their eyes, unable to stomach any more PDA, and they quickly made their escape. Only Marco, uncharacteristically, played along, joking with the couple while his eyes kept darting toward the entrance of the hall. He looked expectant and a little nervous,